Good evening from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Kristen Welker of NBC News, and I welcome you to the final 2020 presidential debate between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, boos, or other interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the stage former Vice President Joe Biden and President Donald J. Trump. And I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you.
Oh, he's already mad.
To a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes.
Trump's like, I wouldn't do much different.
You know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die.
This is not true. This is kind of made up and out of context.
In the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's able to say that.
He's not immune. That's
more and more
not a
people
thing. Okay.
are getting better. We have,
there's evidence to show that
that's a worldwide problem.
you can
this is a worldwide
get sick again.
Problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else.
They were slow to get all of that out.
We're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them.
Yes, they were slow to do all of that.
Go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
That's not true. It's getting worse.
Vice President Biden,
the numbers are going up.
How would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially, anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America.
It's true.
We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now. 1,000
That's correct.
deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared
That's
to
a little
what's
more
going on
than
in Europe,
it's
as the
up
New
to
England
70,
Medical
but
Journal
it's
said,
been
they're
in the
starting from
50s,
a very
40s.
low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead.
That's a
between
correct
now and the
guesstimate,
end of the
yes.
year.
We don't know if that's
we just
true yet.
wore
but-
these masks. The president's own advisors have told him we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan.
That's correct.
No
They
comprehensive
say
plan.
they have no plan.
What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where
What
the
he
New
means
England
is
Medical
we
Journal,
should be
one of the
paying
most serious
money
journals
to
in
businesses
the
to
whole
stay open
world,
even if they
said
can't
for the first
turn a
time
profit
ever
right
that
now
the way
because
this
of the
president
pandemic.
has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President
He
Trump,
does have
I'd
a
like
plan.
to follow up with you and your
It's on his
comments. You
website.
talked about taking a therapeutic.
Right
I
here.
assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
You can
Is
find it
that
on
a
this website.
guarantee?
No, it's not a
is-
guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks.
Oh,
and
wait,
it
his
will be
story just
distributed very
changed.
quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working
This
on
is the
very
most
closely
put
with
together
other
Trump
countries, in
I've ever
particular
seen.
Europe.
Let me follow up with you, and because this is new information, you have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular, that's the head of logistics. And this
300
is a very
million
easy
doses
distribution
is
for him.
a lot.
He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine.
It's not going to happen
And
in
we
a short
expect to
time.
have
Sam.
100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter. A dark winter.
Yeah, it's going to
And he
get
has
way
no
worse
clear
when we're all
plan, and there's
inside.
no prospect.
It's
that
just
there's
how it
going to
is.
be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you
I don't
have no
think we're going to
plan.
have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January.
It came here
Months
from
later,
Europe
he was saying
first.
I was xenophobic. I did it too
We-
soon. Now
like
he's
the-
saying, oh, I
The
should have.
travel ban
I
on
should have,
China
moved
only
quicker.
banned
I
Chinese
didn't move quicker. He
nationals.
was
Like, if
months
you were
behind me.
a tourist
Many
or an
months
American
behind
in
me.
China, you could
And
just come
frankly,
back, and they
he
did.
ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now. But it was a far
They might.
less
Like, we're
lethal
on our way
disease.
there, motherfucker.
Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you know, was his chief of staff, said it was catastrophic, it was horrible, we didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way, every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is
Why?
xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China.
That's
And
right.
He did it late after 40 countries had already done that.
True.
In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there
Look at Trump.
in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And
I
then
don't
what
recall
happened was
that,
we
but-
started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about...
What he means by
"Look,
virtually
this
nothing is
don't worry,
they didn't ramp
it's
up any
all
sort
be over
of
soon." Come on.
process
There's
to
not
deal
another
with COVID
serious
coming.
scientist
They
in the
just
world
were
thinks
like,
gonna
oh,
be
it's
over soon.
coming. It's not
President
going to be
Trump,
that
any
bad.
I
action?
say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does.
Other
He has
countries are doing it and they're
He has
fine.
the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this
Oh.
thing about living in a basement. People
Oh,
can't
he's
do
going
that.
hard
By
on
the
him
way, Congress,
already.
The president couldn't do that. I'd love to
Jesus.
put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families. Every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, you know, this is dangerous, and you catch it. And you know, I caught it. I learned a lot.
He's just
Great
repeating
doctors,
himself
great
now.
Hospitals, and now I recovered.
Great hospitals and doctors that we pay for. We pay for that for him.
99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation, or you're not
Other
going to have a
countries are
nation.
doing that.
And of course, the CDC has
And they're
said young
okay.
people
They're
can
doing
get
better than
sick
us.
with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though. You have
Can I respond to that?
30 seconds, please,
For
and then
30
I have a
seconds.
question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch their,
Yep.
out of habit where their wife or husband was, is gone.
The right
Learning to
attack
live with
is
it.
what
Come
Biden's
on.
doing. Just
We're done
remind
with
everybody
it
that a lot of
because
people are
he's
dying.
never said, you said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
He
me
did
talk
say
about your
that.
two-
Excuse me,
Very
I
quickly.
take full responsibility. It's not my fault that it came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that it came here either. It's
Nice
China's
pivot,
fault.
Trump.
They kept
It's
it
you
from
said
going
you
into
were
the
not
rest of China
responsible for the
most part,
bad
but they
response.
didn't
You
keep
said
it from
that
coming out
multiple
to the
times.
world, including Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
The fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry, it's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry, the warm weather. Don't worry, maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that, but a lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range of things the president has said.
He just
Even
smirked 'cause he's
today,
like, yeah, I
he
said
thinks
that.
We are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
President Trump.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months.
He's making that up.
Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said, this is a terrible thing, you're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even. And because I was closing it to China. Now he says I
I
should have
don't
closed it earlier.
think so.
It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You
I didn't
certainly
say
did.
Sugar
You
coercion,
certainly
and I
did.
I talked about a xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese.
I'm pretty sure Joe
coming to
Biden's
the
right,
United
but
All
I
right,
don't
I want to talk
remember.
about both of your different strategies to handling
He thought
this.
I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well, let's-
That's obvious.
Do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President
No.
Biden? Okay. Let's talk about your different strategies toward dealing with this. Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to...
Hold on. I gotta check to see if the stream's working.
And because I was
Okay.
Real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap in a golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Well, no, I'm not shutting down the name, but there are, look, you need standards. The standard
Yes,
is if
but
you have
other
a reproduction
countries-
rate in a
he
community
might not give a good
that's
answer
above
on this.
a certain level, Everybody says, slow up.
A lot of other countries are doing
social
targeted
distancing.
shutdowns
Do not
where
open
an infection
bars,
breaks
do not
out,
open
they shut it
gymnasiums.
down for 2
Do not
weeks,
open until you get
they
this
give
under
them money to
control,
deal with it,
under
it's
more
over, they
control.
come back.
But
And
when
they've
you
been
do
doing that a
open,
lot, and that
give
requires
the
more
people the capacity
testing,
to
a
be able to
very
open and
organized
have the
response that
capacity
we're not
to do
getting
it
right now.
safely. For
Like,
example,
Trump's
schools.
not going to do any of that. He
Schools,
hasn't
they
done
need
any
more
of that
money
yet.
to open.
You think
They
he's
need
just
to
going to
deal
start
with
doing it out of the
ventilation systems.
kindness
They
of
need
his
to deal with
heart?
smaller
Come on.
classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President
By the
Trump-
way,
I think we have to respond to
The consequences
Please,
of
and
another
then I have a
shutdown
follow-up.
are
Thank you, and I
just
appreciate
give
that.
people money.
Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania,
Unfortunately, this
North
debate so
Carolina,
far
Democrats-
benefits Trump
Democrats
because
all,
he's not
they're
going all
shut down
crazy.
so tight, and they're dying.
It's going to work well for
They're
people that
dying.
want to like
And
Trump.
he supports all these people. All he talks about
Biden,
is shutdowns.
again,
No,
started
we're not
out a
gonna
little
shut
slow.
down, and we have to open our
We'll see how it
schools.
goes.
And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people, I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've
Like,
demanded schools open.
he's just using his son as a prop.
Safely, but just yesterday,
Like, he doesn't even
Boston
give a
became
shit.
the latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small, but I want to open the schools. We
It's
have to
getting
open our country.
worse.
We're not going to have a country. You can't
Since
do this.
August,
We
we've had
can't keep
over
this
almost
country closed.
80,000
It's a
infections
massive
in students.
country with a massive economy.
we're
People
in-
are losing their jobs. They're committing
We're almost in
suicide.
November, I mean.
There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it.
That's
often,
stuff that's
the cure
always going
cannot
on.
be
That's
worse
not
than
new.
the problem itself.
Vice
And that's
President.
what's happening. And he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your
Simply
response.
not.
But they act like he
We're
acts
gonna
like we're
walk
closing
and
it
chew gum
down
at the
for
same
a
time.
year. Like
We ought to be
it's
able
for
to
a
safely
small
open.
amount of time.
But would they need resources to open? You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources.
We're not
you need
doing
to
any
do
of that.
this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. So don't worry about it.
Exactly.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
By the way, I
on-
will say
Only
this.
some of you are going to
Go
die.
look at what's
So it's
happening
not
in
that bad.
It's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. When you
Jesus.
talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money.
You can give them
Putting
money.
up plexiglass is
You,
unbelievably
this guy right here,
expensive,
can give them
and it's
money
not
right
the answer. I
now.
mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people.
You
just can't.
Like I
Take a
said,
look
this
at New
guy
York
can
and
fix
what's
that
happened to
problem
my
right now.
Wonderful city for
But he
for
hasn't.
so many years. I
They
loved
gave
it.
more
It was
money away
vibrant.
to
It's
large
dying.
enterprises.
Everyone's
They gave
leaving New
more
York.
Take a look
to
at what New York has done in
the
terms of
airline
turning
industries
the curve
than they
down
did
in terms of
to
number
the
of
average
people.
worker.
And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states.
That's
They're
correct.
the states in the Midwest.
There's a
They're the
graph that
states in
shows
the upper
that, and it's
Midwest.
really
That's where the
gross.
spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans.
That's
and what
right.
we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people. 11,000
'Cause of your
people in
inaction.
nursing homes.
President Trump, what
when you
about-
say spike,
Oh,
take a
Chris
look at
Cuomo,
what's
I mean,
happening in
uh,
Pennsylvania, where they've had it closed.
Andrew
Take a
Cuomo,
look at
Governor
what's
Cuomo
happening
talked
with your
about the
friend
nursing home
in
thing
Michigan,
specifically.
Where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything.
he gave a
It's
lot of
been like a
details on
prison.
that. There's a whole
Now, it was
report
just
written
ruled
on it if you want to read it.
unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes, and they've been closed. and they're getting killed financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up.
Joe Biden's
And we
gonna give
understand
everybody
this.
money.
We have to protect our
It's
seniors.
gonna be a
We have
good
to
deal.
protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems.
Well, I
and
don't know that for sure,
diabetes
but that's what they
problems,
keep
and we will
talking
protect
about.
them. We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow up
because it
with you
shows.
before we move on to our next section. President Trump, this week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to as you fight this?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony, but
He just called him an
he did
idiot the
say,
other day.
Don't wear masks. He did
Like
say,
multiple times.
as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said this is not going to be a problem.
Jesus.
We are not gonna
Dr.
have a
Fauci has
problem at all.
never
When
made a
Joe
political
says that,
statement.
I said,
That's-
Anthony
there's no way to know
Fauci
that.
said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from.
A lot
what
of
it was.
the
We've
scientists
learned a
knew
lot.
what
But
was going
Anthony
on
said,
and what
"Don't
we needed
wear
to do."
masks." Now he wants to wear masks.
He didn't
Anthony
say
also
that.
said, if you look back, exact
Well,
words,
sorry,
this is exact
he
words.
said that,
This is no
but
problem.
the
This is
entire
gonna go
task
away
force
soon.
came up
So
with that
he's allowed
because
to make mistakes. He
when they
happens to be a good
started, when they
person.
looked at
Vice
the
President
supplies
Biden,
of
your response quickly,
PPE,
and then we're
especially
gonna move
the
on to the next
masks,
section.
My response
there was such a
is,
shortage
think
of them
about what the
that if
president
we just
knew
told
in
everyone to do
January
it, we
and
wouldn't
told
even
him
have
that.
any for the hospitals at
He
all.
was told this
So
was
they
a
had to make a
serious
horrible
virus
choice
spread in
of
the air.
telling
And
people
it was
not to
much
wear them
worse
at first
than-
because
much
we just
worse
didn't have the
than the
supply,
flu.
and Trump
He
wouldn't
went on
move
record
us
and said
to
to
increase that supply
one
at
of your
any rapid
colleagues,
pace.
He
It took
quoted
like a
that,
month
in
before
fact, he
they
knew how
put that
dangerous
into
it was, but
effect.
He didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us. Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we found out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then we're
the
going
Wall
to
Street
move
one,
on.
I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it.
I haven't.
You have raised a lot of money.
What? That's not true at all.
And every time you raise
I mean,
money,
Wall Street does like Joe
I
Biden.
could
That's
raise
true,
so
but
much more money.
they
As
definitely are giving
president
money
and
to
as
Trump.
somebody that knows most of those people, I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America. I would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able
All
to
right,
get.
gentlemen, we're
But
going to
don't
move
tell me
on.
about Wall
Average
Street.
We're gonna-
That's not a good
contribution,
attack.
$43.
All right, we're going to move on to our
That's not a
next
good
section,
attack on
which
Joe
is
Biden.
national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages.
Yeah,
to
this just
foreign
happened this
voters.
week.
This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear. and I
It
asked
is
everyone
nice
else
that they're
to
not
take the
yelling
pledge.
at each.
I
Well,
made it clear
it's nice that
any
Trump
country,
isn't going
no
all
matter
hard
who it
and
is,
Joe Biden doesn't
interfering
have to
in
yell at
American
him.
elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election. I won't even get into the last one.
Trump's
This
administration
election,
doesn't seem to care
Russia's
about
been
this at
involved,
all.
China's been involved to some degree, and now we learn that
They don't even
Iran
do
is
anything
involved.
about it. They don't even make any statements about
They
it.
will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's talked with them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani.
Joe Biden didn't want to bring it up.
He's being fed information that is Russian.
We don't, okay.
That is not true.
You should say
And then what
allegedly.
happens?
We don't
Nothing
know it
happens.
for
And
certain
then you
yet.
find out that everything that's going
So
on
maybe
here
not say
about
that, dude.
Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me.
That's
I don't
true. They know
understand
Joe
why
Biden.
This president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's
They didn't like
actually
Joe Biden
paying
when he
bounties
was
to
doing
kill
Obama
American
stuff,
soldiers
so.
in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question. Why?
Yeah,
isn't
it's
that
really
being
strange
done?
that Trump's
Any country that
administration
interferes with us
went
will, in fact,
went and
pay
willfully
the price because
dismantled
they're
these
affecting our
long-standing,
President
you
Trump,
know,
same question to you.
multi-country
Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row, there has been
alliances like
substantial
NATO
interference from foreign
interfering with
adversaries.
that,
What would you do in your
and
next
using the
term
guise
to
of
put an end to
America
this? 2 minutes
first while he
on
does it
Let me
all.
respond to the first
Just
part,
he's done a lot of
Joe
weird
answered.
foreign
Joe
policy
got
things over the
$3.5
last
million
4
from
years,
Russia.
and it
And
disrupts a
came
lot of the
through
balance
Putin
that
because he
existed,
was very
which
friendly
sucks
with the
a lot because
former mayor of
we
Moscow,
lost out
who
on
was
the
the mayor
Iran
of
deal that
Moscow's
was
wife,
having a
and
big
you
effect
got
on
$3.5 million.
their
Your family
nuclear
got
program.
$3.5
I mean,
million,
there's so many
and,
things that Trump did
someday
that's
you're gonna
really
have to explain why did
really
he get $3.5
questionable
I never got
at-
any money
at
from Russia.
best.
I don't get money from Russia. Now, about
I don't
your
get
thing
money
last
from
night,
Russia.
I
He
knew all
loves
about
saying that, but that's
and
not true.
you-
I have a whole
John,
article
who
pulled up
was
that
John
disproves that. I was
Ratcliffe,
wondering
is
if he was going to bring
fantastic.
that up.
He and I- He said, the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, you know, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well. During your term, during you and Barack Obama, they took over a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them. But you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening, and it should have never happened. And
I don't.
think you
He's
owe
in
an
conspiracy right
explanation
now.
to the American people. Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family, but what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk
But
to the
none of
American
this has
people.
been
Maybe you can do
verified
it
yet.
right now.
Like, we don't have any actual
Vice
evidence
President Biden,
at
you may
hand.
respond in 30
Please, straight
seconds.
here.
And then I do
I-
want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax.
I don't
in
know if that's
China.
true,
Has a secret
what
bank
he just
account
said.
with
Maybe,
China,
I don't
does
think it's
business
never.
in
It's
China,
possible he has.
And in fact, is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president. I have released all of my tax returns.
That's true.
22 years. Go look.
Joe
at it.
Biden did
22
do
years
that.
of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return.
That's true.
What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot. Russia's paying you a lot.
He
China's
does make
paying
money
you a
all
lot.
over the
And
world.
your hotels and all your businesses.
Like
all around
him
the country,
personally through his
all around the
business,
world.
not him as
And China's
president.
building a new
But
road
because he
to
had
new
such a
town,
long history of those
golf course you
relationships,
have over
and now
there.
he's president,
So
those
what's going
relationships
on
didn't
here?
get
Why
put
don't
away
release your tax
at
returns
all.
and
He
stop
didn't even
talking
try to
about
put
Russia?
those away.
President Trump, your response.
First of all,
There's a whole story about how the Saudi, the royal Saudi family has paid Trump over $300,000 to stay at his hotels in New York and other places. It's nuts.
Much more importantly than that,
As he was
people
president,
saying
by the way.
$750.
When he was president,
I asked
the
them
Saudi royal
a week
family
ago, I said,
stayed at his
"What did I
hotels.
pay?" They said,
paid him
"Sir,
a lot
you
of money."
Prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years.
I prepaid my
tens
tax.
Of millions of dollars. I prepaid. Because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your
I
account tell you
prepaid.
to release
Excuse
them?
me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking
Who?
about $750.
Name a person in your life that prepays their tax.
Let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars.
I don't buy
in
this.
taxes.
This is a straight
Number
lie.
one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make
Yeah,
money
his
from
daughter
Ukraine.
definitely
You do.
does, and I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure
make
so
money
does his
from
brand.
Russia. You made $3.5 million, Joe, and your son gave you.
I
they
think
even
Trump
have a
ties were made in
statement
China.
that
Like,
we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know, maybe you're not, but you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All
we
right,
don't
gentlemen,
know
I'm
if
gonna
those
ask you
are
both
even
some
real
questions
yet.
About all of
Respond
this,
to
but I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant
Yes.
about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you
As
have
soon
a
as the audit is
deadline for
finished.
when you're going to release them
I
to
get
the American
treated-
people?
oh, he's back
Worse
on the
than
audit
Tea Party
thing.
got
That's not
treated.
true. He can release
Because I
them
have a lot of
anytime.
people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance
Some
to
point
talk
about
about this
responding
more
to this.
broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us.
Yeah.
Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying
That was
for
all-
4 years you're going to release
that
your
was all
taxes.
BS.
Nobody knows it, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or
we-
you're paying taxes
do
that
know
are
that.
so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on. Come on, folks.
Very
So
quickly, President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions.
Yeah.
I was put through.
These are all
a
easy for
phony
Joe,
witch
though.
hunt
Like, none of this is
For 3 years.
none of this is stuff we don't know.
It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign.
This would be a great
No
time for
president
Biden
should
to
ever
attack
have
him
to
from
go
some
through
new
what I went
angles.
through. Let me just
Like,
say this.
for example,
Mueller and 18
here
angry
is
Democrats
an entire
and
write-up
FBI agents all over the
about
place
how tax
spent
records
$48
expose more than
million.
21 million
They went
in
through
highly
everything
unusual
I
payments
had,
from the
including
Las
my
Vegas
tax
hotel
returns,
Donald Trump
and they
owns
found
with Phil
absolutely no
Rufin,
collusion
routed
and
through other
nothing
Trump
wrong.
companies and
48
paid out in
million.
cash
I
to
guarantee
his
if I spent
campaign.
$1 million on you, Joe, I could find
This is a
20
really
more,
good article. You
because
should
the
read
kind
it.
of things that you've
If you
done
tell
and
me
the
this
kind
is
of
left
monies
wing or
that
leans
your
left
family has
wing,
taken.
you're
Your
high,
brother made money
okay?
in Iraq,
That's not how this
millions of
works.
dollars. Your other
They
brother-
have
brother made a
documentation to
fortune,
back this
and
up.
all
It's
for
not
you,
left
Joe,
wing
and
when
they
you
say
have
get
sources,
some of it.
okay?
And you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal. With regard to Ukraine, we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of a Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment,
Trump's
testifying
own
under oath who worked for him,
Trump's own
said, "I did my
administration
job
looked into
impeccably.
this.
I carried
Like,
out U.S.
this has been
policy.
looked into
Not
multiple
one
times.
single
They haven't
solitary
found
thing
any
was out of
wrongdoing.
line.
And if they
Not a
did, you
single
best
thing.
believe it would have come
Number
out.
one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe.
He
the
did. He
Ukrainian
got
government
impeached
to
for
say
that.
Something negative about
Trump
him,
straight up got
which they
impeached
would
for
not
doing
do.
some
They
crazy
did not
scheme
do
with
it because it
Ukraine,
never-
even though that they
never
didn't want to
happened.
be a part of it.
My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about? China. I have not had, the only guy made money from China.
Biden doesn't
was
even
this guy.
know what he's talking
The
about.
only
That's
one.
how he's struggling
Nobody
so
else
hard
has
to
made
even
money from
put it straight because
President
it's so
Trump,
confusing.
Let me
By the
ask
way-
my question to you.
But
and
could
then
I just
we'll-
one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long
I
time.
need everyone
was sadly
that
no
watches
longer
this or
in
watching
the
now
military service.
or
I
whatever,
wanted
you
to
got to
know.
understand everything
He didn't
Trump's
have a
been
job.
talking
As
about
soon
with
as
this
he became
whole
vice
issue.
president,
Nothing's
Burisma,
come
not
out
the
yet
best
that's
not the
definitive
best
evidence of
reputation in the world.
wrongdoing.
I hear
It
they
just
paid
hasn't been released yet. Maybe there is
183,000
some behind the
a
scenes,
month.
but
Listen to this.
he can't talk with
183,
certainty yet
and they
unless
gave
he
him a $3
releases that
million
information
upfront
somehow.
payment.
All right.
And he had no energy
I'm going to let the
experience.
Vice President
That's
respond to that quickly, and then I need to
100%
None of
get
this
to
is
questions
illegal,
very
though.
No
quickly,
basis
Vice
for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump.
That's
this is
true.
for you.
He
Since
was
you took office,
investigated by
you've
U.S.
divested from your
officials,
business. You've
and they couldn't
personally
find any
promoted your
wrongdoing.
properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have
He
any
does.
conflicts of interest?
I have
It
no bank
does.
accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a
That's
businessman
worse.
doing
That's
business.
not a
The
defense.
bank account you're referring to,
If you're the
which
president and you
everybody
have
knows
that
about,
type
it's
of
listed.
exposure, you
The
should have
bank
closed
account
them all
is in
down
2013.
so that you aren't
That's
exposed
what it
like
was.
that.
It was open to do. It was.
That's why they're
closed
called
in
conflicts of
2015, I
interest,
believe.
because
And then I decided
you have a
because I was
stake
going to do- I was
somewhere
thinking of doing
else.
a deal in
It's your
China, like
money.
millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it.
He's trying to
Had an
explain from
account
a
open,
business sense
and
why
I
it's
closed it.
okay. But you're the president.
Excuse me. And then
It's
unlike
no
him,
longer
where
applies
he's
to
vice
you.
president and he does business. I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president.
Let's check
Big
on that.
difference.
That's probably
He's
a lie.
The vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking
Okay,
up money every
President Trump,
place he
thank you.
goes.
We do
He
need
He
to
keeps
move on.
saying that.
I
I'm
do
glad
wanna
that she
ask
cuts
you,
him off when he
Vice
goes
President
too
Biden,
hard
about
down the rabbit
China.
hole.
Let's talk about China more broadly. There have, of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay?
I also want to point
Please
out,
be specific.
Trump's
What
showing
would
he
that
was
look like?
capable of this,
What
which
I'd be
means he
trying
could
to
have
do
done
is
this in the
play
first
by the
debate, and he would have been
international
so much better off.
Like he is-
He is actually an
He
imbecile.
has
Like
caused the
his
deficit of
his original
China
strategy was
not
so
down.
bad.
with China.
This man is a
Up,
fool.
not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to.
Joe
play by
Biden knows the rules
internationally
on
as
this,
well.
for sure.
When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies.
He does,
we
man.
Make up
Undoubtedly.
We're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it, and that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to
I don't know if
explain
any. I don't
Okay.
know how accurate
Very
Joe
quickly, then
Biden's
we're gonna
claims
move
were
on to
there,
North
but I'm
Korea.
pretty sure
$1.5
that those things
from
were true.
China to
Not
manage after
true.
spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year. for
There's again.
introductions.
President Trump, on
There's
China
no
policy, though,
evidence
what
yet
are you
that
gonna
has been
do?
verified.
What specifically are you going to
can't
do
go
to
off
make
of that.
China pay? You've said you're going
First
to
of
make
all,
them pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave
New
$28 billion.
sanctions? New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers. because
Taxpayers'
China,
money.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't
No,
come
no,
from
yeah,
China.
you know who the taxpayer is. It's called China. China paid
true.
$28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them
Trump
anything.
paid out
Also,
bailouts
I
before
charged
we
them
ever got money
25% on
through
dumped
that
steel
tariff
because they were
system
killing
ever.
our
In fact,
steel
we
industry.
still haven't
We're not
regained
gonna
the
have a steel
losses
industry.
yet.
Okay.
And now we have a steel
We're
industry.
we're
Vice
still
President,
down
your
by a
response,
lot.
please.
My response is, look, this isn't about, there's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making less than, if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making in the middle-class families like I grew up in.
Trump
Scranton,
never
Vermont.
brings
They're in
any of
trouble.
this up.
We
Have
should
you
be
ever
talking
heard
about your
Donald
family.
Trump
That's the last thing
in
he
his
wants to talk
life talk about an average
wanna talk
person
about
or their
it.
family or what they
I do
struggle
wanna
with.
turn to
He
10
doesn't
seconds,
talk
Mr.
about
President,
that
10
because he
seconds.
doesn't even know what that's like
Let's
or
get
if
off
how
this
it could
China
even
thing and heavy
exist.
looks, the family around the table.
He just
everything.
says, "I love
Just a
everybody."
typical politician when I say
Whatever.
that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not
North
a typical
Korea now.
politician.
Okay,
That's why I
President
got elected.
Let's talk
let's
about-
get
That's-
off the subject of China.
Trump
Let's
said
talk
something
about sitting
true.
around
He's
the
not
table.
typical,
Come on, Joe, you
and
can
that
do
did
better.
help
We're
him
gonna
get
talk
elected.
About North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test, and yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you
It's
see
very
that as
true.
a betrayal of the relationship you forged just
They
30
turned right
seconds
around
into
and did missile
development?
tests
So,
after
when I
Trump
met with
strong-armed
Barack
them.
Obama,
He
who
didn't
sat
do
in the
anything.
White House, right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very
Why
good
do you want to
relationship,
be?
and there's no
Why do you want to
war.
have a good
And you know,
relationship
about
with someone
2
who
months ago,
literally puts
he
his
broke
own
into
people
a certain
in
area. They said, "Oh, there's
camps?
going to be trouble." I said, "No, they're not." because
He
there's nothing
starves
to
his
that."
own
And I was
people.
right.
They
Look,
live under
instead of
a
being in war where
dictatorship
millions of people
where
sold,
they
you know,
worship him
25
as
miles
their
away.
leader. And if they don't,
Millions and
they will be
millions,
hurt,
32 million people
killed,
sold. Millions
to have
of
their
people living
family
in
taken
Iraq
from
right
them.
now.
President
We
Trump,
don't have
Like,
that
they live in a
kind of
terrible
relationship.
world.
Vice President Biden
And
told
he's
North
like,
Korea
we have a
conducted
good
full nuclear
relationship.
tests under the Obama
Why? You should
administration.
never have a
What
good
do you think
relationship
you would
with
be
someone
able
like
to
that.
rein in
That doesn't make
this
any
system?
sense.
Because I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear, and as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, "Why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea?" I said, "Because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do
They
something
are our
about it,
enemy
step up and help. If not, it's
because
gonna
of
continue.
who their
What has
leader
he
is.
done? He's legitimized
If they had a
North Korea.
democratic
He's talked about his
society,
buddy
you
who's
can
a
best
thug,
believe North Korea would not be
thug,
our enemy.
And he talks about how
They are
we're
simply
better
our
off,
enemy
and
because
they
of
have
who
much
leads
more
that
capable
country.
missiles,
And
able to
Trump
reach U.S. territory
is
much
all
more
buddy
easily
buddy
than
with
they do.
him,
Let me
or
follow up
tries
with
to
you.
be. I
Vice
mean, by his
President
own
Biden
words
said you
5
wouldn't meet
seconds
with
ago,
Kim Jong-un without
he's like,
the
we have a good
conditions, under any
relationship.
conditions
Why?
under which you would
Why?
meet with him.
On the
Don't.
condition that
That's
he
not
agrees
good.
that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get the Korean Peninsula should be nuclear-free zone.
That's true
All right,
that
let's
they
move
talked
on
about
to
that.
American
Listen,
families.
they tried
Very
to
quickly,
meet with
10
him.
seconds.
They
please.
did talk
tried to
about
meet
that,
with
but
him.
it,
He wouldn't do
nothing
it.
nothing
He
came out of
didn't
it.
like Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I
know
gotta
for
give him a
fact they
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before
They
we
didn't
do
like
it.
Obama's
And it's
administration
okay.
because we were
You know
really
what?
hard
North
on them.
Korea,
Trump
we're
is
not in
like,
a war. We have a
Trump's
good
like,
relationship.
praise me
You know,
because I was
people
nice
always
to him,
say,
okay?
having a good relationship
That's
President
Trump's
Trump, we have
defense.
to move
of other
on, 'cause
countries
we have
is
a
a
lot of
good
countries.
thing.
We have a lot of questions to get
Yes,
to.
not
That's
Your
bad.
like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe, the rest of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because
I don't
President
know if
Obama
that
said,
was a good way to
"We're gonna
say
talk
that,
about
but-
denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you, and we're going to continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you."
That's
why
correct.
he
That's you
wouldn't meet
have
with
to.
us.
That's how
All right,
you.
And it
let's
didn't
move
happen.
That's
on.
how you
Let's
get
move
what you
on
want.
and talk
He
about
left
American
You
the
don't
families.
have to fight
President
a
Trump, okay, we
physical
need
war
to
to have a
be
war
a
with
mess.
North Korea. You can
North
fight
Korea
a
was a
diplomatic
mess.
war
We
where
need
you
to
force
move
them
on
to
to
make
the
choices
first two
just to
questions
survive.
tonight.
It was a
Because
very
when you do
dangerous
that,
period of
you
my
eventually
first 3
turn them
months
into an
before we
ally.
sort of
You
worked
starve
things
them
out
of
a
all
little bit. It was a
resources
very
so that they are
left
forced
us
to
a
join you.
mess. And Obama
Once they
would be,
join
I
you,
think,
you
the first to
de-escalate.
say it
If
was the
you
single
buddy
biggest
buddy with
problem he
Trump,
thought that
you
our
just let them
country-
Okay,
carry
let's
out their
move on to
horrible
American
agenda.
families and the economy.
Like, that's what
One of
Trump
the
has
issues
enabled.
that's most important
They have
to them
absolutely
is healthcare,
ramped
as you
up
both
their
know.
military might
Today, there
since
was a
Trump
key
buddy
vote in
buddied
a new
with
Supreme
Kim
Court
Jong-un.
Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and healthcare is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme
Trump
Court,
can't answer
and
this.
your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the
That's
Supreme
true.
Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted. started.
First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court.
Yes.
Because Obamacare is no good.
Yes,
But
but
then I
what
made a
he's not
decision,
saying
run it
is,
as well as you can
when you
to
went
make
on the
people, great
exchange
people.
and got
Run it as
a,
well as you can. I could have gone the other
plan
way
from
and
the
made
exchange,
everybody
which
very unhappy.
the individual
They ruined it.
mandate, part of the
Premiums are
law
down,
that helped
everything's down. Here's
fuel
the
that
problem.
was
No matter how well you
insurance
run it,
companies
it's
have
no
to
good.
make
What
a
we'd
certain
like
set
to
of
do
plans
is
that they
terminate
submit to
it.
the exchanges
We have
every
the
year.
individual
So that way
mandate
people
done.
can get
I don't
insurance
know
at a
if it's
cheaper
going to work.
amount.
If we don't win,
Plus,
we
a lot of the
have to
people
run
that
it, and
apply
we'll have
to
Obamacare,
the
but
exchanges
it'll
can
be
get a
better run.
subsidy
But it
from
no
the
longer is
federal
Obamacare,
government.
because
They look
without
at your
the
tax
individual
return and your
mandate,
income,
it's much different.
and they determine,
Pre-existing
we're going to give you
conditions
X amount a
will
month
always stay.
based on how
What
much
I
you
would like
make,
to do
so
is
you
a
can afford
much
a more
better
expensive
healthcare,
plan
much
at the
better.
rate you can pay.
Will always
Everybody
protect
pays
people
into
with
this, we all
pre-existing.
benefit. This
So
was
I'd
like
like
the
to
first
terminate
step towards
Obamacare,
a
come
public
up with a
option, but it
brand
was
new,
through
beautiful
private
healthcare.
insurance
The
companies.
Democrats will do
So
it because
private
there'll be
insurance companies are getting all the
tremendous
money,
pressure on them,
but
and we might even have the
it was
House
giving
by
poor
that
people
time.
coverage
And I
that
think we're
lived in the
going to win
gap
the
between
House. Okay,
Medicaid
we'll
and
see, but I think
insurance
we'll
they
win the
couldn't
House.
afford.
But come up with
Like,
a better healthcare,
Trump is such a
always
liar.
protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very
And he
important,
took away the
we have
mandate, so he
180
made it
million
so
people
you don't
out
have
there
to do that
that
now.
have great private
And when
healthcare.
less people
Far more
participate,
than
there's
we're
less
talking
money
about
in the
with
system
Obamacare.
driving
Joe
down the
Biden is
cost.
going to terminate all of those
Like,
policies.
the whole thing
These are
just
people
sucks.
that love their health care. People that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families.
That are
And
expensive
what he
as hell,
wants to do, which
okay?
will
Not only do
basically be
people pay
socialized
every
medicine,
month
you
out of
won't
their
have a choice.
paycheck
They want
for
to
their
terminate
health insurance
180
premium,
million
but their
plans.
employer
We've
covers
done
a
an
portion of that
incredible
too.
job on healthcare.
So not only do both
And we're gonna
parties
do even
pay,
better.
but when you do use the
Okay,
insurance,
Vice President
you have
Biden,
to
yes,
hit
this
a
is for you. Your
deductible
healthcare
before the
plan
insurance
calls for
company starts
building
covering
on
all the
Obamacare.
bills.
So
And
my
even
question is,
then,
what is your plan
you still end
if
up
the
with
law
bills
is ruled
after the fact.
unconstitutional by the Supreme
So
Court?
this
We do have 2
system
minutes
now is
uninterrupted.
uber expensive. You get
What I'm
taxed like
gonna
3
do
different
is
ways.
pass Obamacare with a public option. It'll become Biden-care. The public option is an option that says that
I'm glad he's
if
saying
you, in
this.
fact, do not have the wherewithal to be, if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition
That's good.
for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that
Our
the
government hasn't
competition
negotiated
that
drug
doesn't exist
prices
now by
in a
allowing
long time.
Medicare to
Because they haven't been
negotiate
allowed to.
drug prices with the
Like they don't
insurance
make any
companies.
laws regarding
Thirdly,
it on
the
purpose.
idea that I want to eliminate private insurance. The reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why
Yeah,
I
Joe Biden and I
not
differ
one
here.
Single person with
Every
private
single
insurance
country
would lose
comparable
their
to the
insurance
United
under my
States
plan,
has a
nor would
nationalized
they
or
under
nationally
Obamacare. They
funded
did not lose their
health
insurance
system
unless
with
they
usually
chose
one
they
insurer.
wanted to go to something else.
There is still a
Lastly,
private market
we're
in
gonna
those
make
countries,
sure
but
in a
that's all for
situation that
subsequent
we
insurance, for
actually
things that
protect
basic
pre-existing.
health care
There's
doesn't
no way you
cover.
can protect pre-existing
So you can
conditions.
buy that if you
None.
want.
Zero. You can't
But
do it
every
in
other
anything.
country on this
He's been
planet
talking about
that is
this for a
comparable
long
to the
time.
US
There is
has
no,
a
he's never come up with a
national
I
plan.
guess we're gonna get
We have a
pre-existing condition
privatization
plan at the
model,
same time
and
we get the
it costs a
infrastructure
lot
plan
of money.
that
We
waited
spend
for
twice as much
17, 18, 19, and 20.
per
The fact- I
capita
still have a
than
few
those
minutes.
countries
already
I
getting
just
anxious.
mentioned
The,
for the same
The
thing.
fact is that
So
the-
yeah, our
it's
system
already
is
cost the
way,
American people
way
because
more
of this
expensive,
terrible
period.
handling of
You
the
can't
COVID
argue
virus
these
and
numbers.
Economic spillover. 10 million people have lost their private insurance, and he wants to take away.
Canada spends like
22
half
million
as much
more
as we
people
do on their
having
health care per
Obamacare,
capita.
and over 110
That means you compare
million
for a
people with
population
pre-existing
size.
conditions, and all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to something that President Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting socialized medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government? What's
I
your
say
response
it's
to them?
ridiculous. It's like saying that, we're, the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the
No.
president.
Adding
I
a
think
public
healthcare
option
is
does
not
not
a
make
privilege, it's a
our
right.
system a
Everyone
socialized
should have
system.
the right to
The
have
socialized
affordable
system
healthcare.
means
And
that
I
the
am very
government
proud of my plan.
owns
It's gotten
the entire
endorsed by
healthcare ladder.
all the major
It means
labor
that
unions as well
the government
as
employs
well
all
as
of
a
the
whole range of
doctors,
other
the
people who are
nurses, the
faculty
everything,
staff in
owns all the
medical field.
hospitals,
This is
and
something
funds
that's
it
gonna
all.
save
That's
people's lives.
socialized
This is gonna
medicine.
give some people an
Well,
opportunity
and that actually is what exists in the UK, in Sweden, in a lot of countries. countries, they have that
What in
model.
God's name are you
But
gonna do if you get
and it
sick?
can be really high
Because you've
quality. I
lost
mean,
your
Donald
health
Trump
insurance,
went to
your-
one of the
your health
highest
insurance, your company's paying.
rated
We
medical
have to
facilities
provide
on the
health insurance
planet.
for people
One
at an
of the
affordable rate,
best
and that's why-
places to go
President
if
Trump
you
was-
have
He was
severe
there for
injuries,
47
if you have the worst
years.
kinds
He
of
didn't do it.
disease.
He was
Donald
down
Trump
there
went
as
to a
vice
place
president for 8
that is
years, and
government
it's not
run,
like it was
government
25
funded.
years ago. It was 3 and
I agree.
3/4
Trump is
It
winning
was
because of
just
his
a
strategy
while
change.
ago.
It sucks.
Less than 4 years ago. He didn't
His
do
answers
anything.
are all
He didn't
bullshit,
do
but
it.
he is winning.
He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice president, I mean, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even more. Bernie Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like you went with fracking.
So we
We're not
don't,
gonna have
like,
fracking. We're gonna
Joe,
stop
in
fracking. We're gonna
nowhere,
stop fracking. Then
okay,
he goes to Pennsylvania. After
there's-
he gets
let's
a
go
nomination,
find the
we'll
hel-
get very
the
lucky
healthcare
again.
part.
And he goes to Pennsylvania, and he says, "Oh, we're going to have
Let's see.
fracking." And you never ask that question. And
I don't
by the
even
way,
know where
so
it is
far,
on
I
here.
respect very much the way you're handling this. I have to say.
By the way-
but somebody should ask the question.
You can ask
He
the-
goes for a year.
Wow, did
There
Trump
will
just
be
say he
no
respected
fracking.
something?
We have
Jesus.
we have a number of topics we're
No,
going to
but
get
that's a
to.
big- that's a big question.
We're going to get to.
I don't know where the health
It's
plan
the same
is.
thing with
Oh.
socialized
I have to
medicine.
respond.
Vice President, your
'Kay.
response, please.
My response is
Nowhere
people
in this
deserve to have
plan,
affordable health
okay?
care, Period. 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 And
Yeah,
the
I know,
Biden care
it's
proposal
dumb.
will, in fact, provide for that
Biden is
affordable
just a
health
weaker
care,
debater
lower
nowadays.
premiums.
He's
What
just
we're
an
gonna
older
do
guy
is it's
now,
gonna
and
cost
he's
some
not
money.
as good as he used to
It's
be.
gonna cost over
Period.
$750
He's
billion
just slowed down a
over
lot.
10 years to do it. And they're gonna have
No,
lower
I've read
premiums,
through
you
this
can
whole
buy
thing,
the
by the
better
way,
plans,
everybody.
the cheaper plans.
They're
lower
nowhere in
premiums,
this plan.
deal
Does
with
it say the
Einstein
government is going to
unexpected
take over
billion and have your
doctors'
blood
jobs
pressure
and become the
drop
main
significantly.
employer?
He keeps talking
Okay,
about it. He hasn't
none of
done
this talks
anything
about a
for
socialized
anybody on
system.
healthcare. Not a
I
thing.
wish
Very quickly,
that's the
I don't wanna
system
talk
we
about
had.
this topic.
I wish the
He's
government ran our
talking about
healthcare
socialized
system,
medicine.
just like the
And
government runs our
medicine
mail
and
system.
healthcare. When he
I
talks
wish,
about a public
I,
option,
God,
he's talking
please,
about destroying your Medicare,
give me socialized healthcare. I would,
and
I would,
destroying your
I could
Social
die
Security.
then.
And
I'd
this
be
whole
so
country
happy.
will come
So.
down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it.
So anyway,
Okay,
none of
let's
this
hear-
is
let's let Vice
socialized
President
medicine.
respond.
It
This
doesn't-
all
Vice
has to do with
President,
private
respond.
companies and how we're going to regulate with them.
He's running against
So I just need
Joe
everyone to understand.
Biden.
The socialized
I beat
claim
all
is
those
bullshit.
other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden, he's running against. And the idea that we're in a situation that they're going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security, Social Security will
Trump
be
is
bankrupt
successful-
by
Yeah, it is funny.
2023. With no
Oh, that's
way to
hilarious.
make up
I didn't know he has a
for it.
Twitch.
This is
A
the
lot
guy
of
who's
people,
tried
a
to
lot of
cut
political campaigns are
Medicare.
starting to make
So,
them,
no,
yeah.
I mean, the idea
And
that
just
Donald
political
Trump
people are making
is
Twitch
lecturing me on
Twitch
Social
accounts now.
Security and Medicare?
Um,
Come on.
He tried to get
10
rid of.
seconds,
He
Mr.
tried to hurt
President, and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
ago. Years ago. Go back and look at
Yeah,
the records. He tried to
Joe.
hurt
He's
Social
talking about
Security
Joe
years ago.
Biden in
All
like
right,
the
let's move on. I'm
70s.
gonna move on. Let
In
me
like
move
the
on.
70s, they had a
Let's move on to the
spending
next
deficit
question.
problem
We're
because
not gonna
of
have
the
to move on.
Republican presidents had spent us
If
into
he's elected,
deficit.
the stock
So Joe
market will
Biden was
crash.
talking
Okay,
about a
let's
time
move on to the
when they
next
wanted to
question.
freeze the budget and not
Very
increase spending on these major
The idea that
entitlements
the
because
stock
it would
market
drive our
performance
deficit
is
even
only
more.
measure of what's
So
happening.
Trump again
My
leaves
company's
out very
claiming
important
that
context.
people don't live off
There
the
is
stock
video
market.
evidence of Joe
Just in
Biden
the-
saying those
just
claims,
in the
but you have to
last
understand
3
why he
years
was
during
doing
this
it at the
crisis,
time.
The billionaires in this country made, according to the
I like that Joe Biden
$700
focuses on what's going on
billion
today.
more
This is probably weaker for
$700
people that
billion
don't like Joe
more
Biden, but for me, who
because that's
wants
his only
him to
measure.
beat Trump,
What
this is how you
happens
get
to
other
the
people to
ordinary
vote.
people out there? What
You
happens
have
to
to keep
them?
reminding
Let's
everybody
move
of the
on.
present. He
Capitol
keeps
Hill.
doing that, and that's a good
401ks
strategy for
are
people
through
to
the
vote
roof.
for
We're gonna
him.
move
Stock are through the roof,
All
and
right.
he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like one of the, he lived there for a short period
gonna-
of time before he
okay,
even knew
we're
it.
gonna move on to
and
the
he
next
left.
question.
And the people of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work, and as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families.
Yeah,
are
Trump's
going
past
hungry
is
every
horrible.
day.
You could attack
Those
him
hardest
all the way
hit
up and down the
women
line,
people
from the
of
past to the
color.
present,
They
and
see
he's bad.
Washington fighting
That's
over
true.
a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories.
The Republicans
on a date called November
are
3rd.
due to lose
Nancy
the Senate
Pelosi
and the
does not
House.
want to
It
approve
looks
it.
like that
We are
on
ready,
paper.
willing, and able
Now,
to do
that's
something.
just polling
Don't forget,
data and
we've
stuff, so
already
take that
approved
with a
3
grain of
plans,
salt.
and
But
it's gone through,
if
including the Democrats,
if the
in all
polls
fairness.
are
This
somewhat
one she
correct
doesn't
and
want
the
is near
Democrats
the
sweep
election
everything,
because she thinks it hurts
that's
her
the
politically.
best case
I think it
scenario
hurts
for
her
regular
politically.
people.
All right,
It just
Mr. Vice
is.
President,
You know, the Republican leader in the United States.
I don't like the
said he can't
Democrats.
pass it.
Let's just
He will not
clear
be able
that
to
up
pass it.
right now.
He does
I'm
not
not a
have Republican
Democrat,
votes.
okay?
Why
I
is he
don't
talking
identify
to
with
his
that
Republican friends?
old
Let me follow up
mentality
with you,
of what
Vice
they've been
President.
doing,
Let me-
incrementalism for a long
Let me
time.
ask Vice President Biden a question.
But
you are the leader of the
I live in a
Democratic
place
Party.
where I
Why
have
you not push
Democrats or
Democrats to
Republicans
get
as a
deal for
choice,
the American
and what I mean by
people?
that as a choice is
pushed it.
those
Look,
are the
they
major
passed this
parties that
act
control our
all the way
government.
back
So I
in the
have to
beginning
pick
of
one to
summer.
vote.
This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been
Yeah,
sitting
Trump's so
there.
dumb.
And look at what's happening.
Yes, the
When
HEROES
I
Act's
was
been
in
sitting on
charge
the
of
table.
Recovery
It
Act
hasn't
with
been pushed.
$800 billion. I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance.
Joe
the
Biden
budget.
has a
The states
great
are
record on
responsible,
stimulus
so they
spending.
have to fire
Because they did a really
firefighters,
big one. It was the biggest in
firefighters,
history, and they got
teachers,
all their
first
money back.
responders, Law enforcement officers. So
That
they can
stimulus
keep
spending
their
that
cities
Obama's
and counties
administration
running.
did in that
He
first 2
will
years,
not support that.
they got
given
all that
a
money
thing for
back
that.
plus
And Mr.
interest,
McConnell said, "Let 'em
and they
go
forced the
bankrupt.
banks to take it.
Let
And they
'em
said,
go
if you don't
bankrupt."
take this money,
Come
you'll
on.
never get
What's the
you'll
matter
never
with
get a
Bill
bailout
that was passed in the
again.
House
They
was
threatened
a
them with that
bailout
shit.
of badly run, high crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right, I want to.
I love when he says Democrat-run cities. That means that That means that he doesn't think there's Republicans in office in those cities. There are, and they work together, so make no mistake. Even in the state I live in, there's Democrats in our state house, and in our city, and our mayor's a Democrat. And I live in a very red state.
And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government a deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President,
It's not smart
we
to
are
let things
talking a
open
lot
when
about
people are
struggling
dying at the
small
rate they are.
businesses
It's
and
too
business
much.
owners these
It's
days.
way too high.
Do you think this is
You
the right
c-
time
like it's
to
better
ask
to
you
just
raise the
provide
minimum wage
stimulus
and force
spending
support of
until we get
$15
there.
federal
The
minimum
United
wage?
States
because I think
government
one
and
of the
our
things we're
economy
gonna
is the
have to
largest
do
on the
is we're gonna
planet.
have
We
to
can
bail
easily give
them out,
regular
too.
people enough money
We
to
should be
live.
bailing
It's
them
not a
out
problem.
now, those small businesses.
He's
You got
right.
1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back.
The
They
cost of
passed
being
a
open is too high
package
still. Like,
that
we can't-
allows us to be able to
we
get
have to be a lot
PPP.
better
Money
about
is
it.
supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses
We
as
need.
well as the
We live in a
schools
time where
the
we need a
help.
large
But
government
these guys
spending
will not help them.
of things
It's
that will
not
help
giving them
regular
any of the
people.
money.
We are going to
Like,
move on
you
to
guys
the
need to
break,
look back
but
at the
I wanna
stimulus
say we
back
have
in
to act-
small
May or
businesses
whatever,
by
and look how
raising
much
the
went to
minimum
large
wage. That's not
companies
helping.
and how much of that was
I
used
think
for
it should
stock
be a state
buybacks
option.
and all kinds of crazy shit like
Alabama
that.
is different than
A lot of
New York.
hundreds of
New York
billions
is
of
different
dollars
from
went to
Vermont.
companies with
Every
no
state is different.
accountability.
It should be a state option.
You said
Again,
very
that
recently-
happened during
It's
Joe
very
Biden's
important.
time, but a
We
lot
have
of
to
that
help
money
our
came
small
back.
businesses.
Actually,
How are you
like I said,
helping
not a
our
lot.
small
All of
businesses
that
when
money
you're
came back.
forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said
Not
very
true,
recently you would
by the way.
consider raising
What?
the federal minimum
Trump
wage
just
to
made some bullshit.
$15
Say
an
it.
hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to
What I
$15 an
really
hour. Is
like,
that still the case?
and I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really
administration?
like, in a second administration. But
I'm only
not to
voting
a
for
level
Biden
that's
'cause
gonna
I
put all
can't
these
obviously
businesses
vote for
out of
Trump.
business. It should
I
be a
don't
state
like
option.
Biden as the
Look,
candidate, but
in different
he's what we
places,
got.
I know different places. They're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would be
Okay, President
ruinous.
Trump, thank you. Quick
No
response,
one
Vice
should
President
work
Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level.
Yeah,
And
we
there is
shouldn't
no
have a
evidence
job
that
in
when you
America
raise the
that puts you
minimum
in
wage,
poverty.
businesses
That
go out
doesn't
of
make
business.
sense
That
at
is
all.
simply not true.
We're
Like,
gonna
if
talk
you
about
put
immigration.
more
We're gonna
hands,
talk about
more
immigration
money in
now,
the hands of
gentlemen,
people, whether that
and
be
we're
through
gonna talk about
stimulus
families
spending or
within this context.
giving
Mr. President, your
loans to
administration
businesses to pay
separated
people
children
more,
from their
or
parents
there's
at the
a
border.
thousand
At
ways
least
to do this.
4,000 kids.
When
You've
you
since
put
reversed
money
your
in the
zero
hands of a
tolerance
lot more
policy,
people, and we're
but the
talking
United
hundreds
States
of millions
can't
of people,
locate the parents of
every
more than 500
business in the
children.
market
So how will these
benefits.
families
People
ever
buy
be
stuff.
reunited?
People save
Children
money.
are brought here
People pay off debt.
by coyotes
People buy
and lots of
homes.
bad people,
So many
cartels,
things
and
happen
they're
when
brought
you
here,
put
and they
money
used
in
to
the
use
hands
them
of
to get
regular
into our
people
country.
at a
We now
consistent
have
rate.
as strong
When you
a
give
border as
somebody
we've
a
ever
single
had.
check,
We're over 400 miles
nothing
of brand new
moves.
wall. You see the numbers. And we
Yeah,
let people
you
in,
have
but
no
they
data to
come
back
in
up
illegally,
just
and
a
they come in
little.
through
But
America.
how
You
will
can't
reunite
defend
these
just a
children with their
little.
Let me
families,
just tell you,
Mr.
they
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages. And then they had a picture in a certain newspaper. And it was a picture of these horrible cages. And they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them. And then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids
Yes,
with
we're
their
working on
families?
it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this
525
conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500-plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with.
Yeah, the Trump
They
administration
real tough. We're really strong.
made a
And guess
policy
what? They
of
cannot- it's not
disincentivizing
coyotes that
people
bring
by
them over.
separating
They're
their families.
parents.
They were
They were-
using it as a
got
punishment.
separated
They were
from their
saying,
parents.
if you come, I mean, they didn't
It
say
makes
this
a
out loud,
laughing
but
stock and
through their actions,
violence
they were
every
doing,
notion of who we
they were
are as a
trying to
nation.
tell them, if you come up here,
Let me ask
we're
you
taking your
something.
kids away,
They did
and we're
it.
not giving them
We
back.
changed the
Which, by the
policy.
way, is a
Response to
UN
that?
violation.
We did not.
We are
They
violating
built the
human
cages.
rights when we do
They-
that.
who
You
built the
can't
cages,
take
Jim?
kids
Let's
away
talk
from
about
people
who built
just
the
because they
cages.
cross
Let's
the
talk about what
border.
we're talking about.
That's not
What
allowed.
happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 of sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me
It is
ask you
criminal.
I will
about
say this,
immigration.
they went
10
down, we
seconds,
brought
and then I need
reports.
The
to-
UN says it's a criminal
They
action.
are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some
and
of
have
them
gotten
haven't been
such good-
reunited
But
with their
just ask
families.
one question.
Why?
Who built the
Y-
cages?
okay,
I'd
dude,
love you
let
to
me
answer
show you
that.
this.
Who built the cages?
This
Let
is
me ask
gonna
about your
put this
immigration
whole
policy, Mr.
bullshit
Vice
immigration
President.
thing to
The Obama
rest, okay? Are you ready for
administration
this?
did fail to deliver
How
immigration
many
reform, which had
people
been a key
immigrate
promise during the
to the
administration.
US
It
every
also
year,
presided over
okay?
record deportations as well as family detentions.
More
at
than
the
1
border
million
before
immigrants
changing
arrive in the
course.
U.S. each
So
year,
why should voters trust you
as of
with
2018
immigration
data,
reform?
okay?
Because
Watch
we made a
this.
mistake. It took too long.
How many
to get
people
it right. It took too long to
emigrate
get it right.
from the
I'm the
U.S.
President of the United
every
States,
year?
not Vice President of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified.
Hold on,
to
I'm
be
gonna
able
look
to
for
stay
this.
in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy and they want to do that is they've gone to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine. you're
As of
5 years
2016,
old, parents are
2016
taking you
numbers,
across the
9 million
Rio Grande
people
River and it's-
left the
and it's
United
illegal.
States to other
You say,
countries.
"Oh, no, Mom, leave me here.
More of
I'm
us
gonna go with you."
go to other countries than
Many
people,
of them
we
are
let
also-
people even
over
come in.
20,000 of them are first
So
responders.
people that just come
Out
up
there
across the
taking care
border
of
and want to
people
come
during
and make
this
a life,
crisis.
why is that such a problem?
We owe them. We owe them.
President
Kristen,
Trump,
he
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going
So
to
we
do.
shouldn't let people in because
And I
drugs
changed
come?
without
We send
having
drugs that way too.
specific-
The-
We got rid of
like
tax and
our drug
release.
war
We
sends
got rid
drugs
of
and
a
weapons
lot of
across the
horrible
border through
things
our
that
own
they put
government.
in and that they lived
We
with.
send it that
And he
way.
had 8 years he was vice
And not to
president.
mention,
He
more
did
people leave this
nothing
country than come
except
here,
build
than we allow in.
cages to keep
So I don't
children in.
understand this immigration
That's not
problem.
your
I really
response.
The
don't.
catch and release. You know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing. And this is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case
You
that
used to
I
be able.
seek asylum based on the following.
You used to be able to come to this country and go,
why I
hey,
deserve it under American law.
I may be here illegally
sitting
or I
in
crossed an
Chihuahua
illegal
on the other
spot,
side of the
but I
river.
want to I'm an asylum seeker.
Response.
Then they give you
And then we'll
a
Just shows
pass
that
to be
he
here
has
for
no
like a
understanding
certain
of
period of
immigration
time,
laws.
90 days or whatever.
Catch and release
They
is
review
a
your
disaster.
case, they see,
A
they
murderer
check your
would come
background,
in,
they
a
look at you,
rapist would
and they
come
say,
in,
okay,
a very bad person would
we
come
haven't
in,
figured out any
we
reason to
would
not
take
keep you
their
so you can
name,
stay. Or
we
hey,
have to
we
release
can't let
them
you in
into
because
our
we've let
country.
too many in
And
already
then you
this
say
at
they
this
come
point in
back.
time, you can't, and then
Less
they
than
deny you and send you back.
1% of the people
So there was a
come back.
time
We
in
have
this
to
country,
send
well,
ICE out
the time
and
was like
Border
4 years
Patrol out
ago
to find
where it
them.
was
We
regular
would say,
to
"Come
let people
back
come
in
across
2
the border
years,
legally,
3
whatever.
years, we're gonna give you a court
You
case. You didn't
allow
learn
them to
medicine.
claim
We're gonna give
asylum,
you a court
and then they
case.
stay here for a little bit
When
of
you
time,
say
and then
they
they go
come
back.
they don't come back,
Obama
Joe.
deported
They
the
never
most
come
people
back.
than
Only
any
the
other president
really-
ever. And it was through this
I hate to
process
say this,
where people
but
stayed here for a
those
little
with the
bit of
lowest
time and then they were
IQ,
deported
they
because
might
their
come back.
applications were
President
denied.
Trump, let's
And
give
we
Vice
sent those
President Biden
back
a
in the
chance to respond, and
millions.
then we're gonna move
You
on
know,
to the
hundreds
next
of thousands a
section.
year, 400,000 a
Vice
year on
President
average or
Biden,
something.
Know the law, what he's telling you is simply not true.
So that you need to,
They don't
guys
come
need to
back.
understand the immigration process.
All right, let's
Before
move
it
on.
was
Don't
let
worry
them
about
in
it.
for a short
Discriminated.
period of
They don't
time,
have to
review
worry
their
about it.
case,
Let's
deport
move on
them.
to the next
And you have
section.
520
Now it's
kids not knowing
punish
what
them by
they're doing.
locking them in cages
Go ahead.
on the
All right,
border.
let's
You don't
talk
even give
about
them
our
the
next
chance to
section,
be here
which
for a little
is
bit of time.
race in America.
That's
And I
insane.
want to talk about the way black
That's
and brown
that's
Americans
criminal,
experience
guys.
race
You got to
in this
understand how
country.
really bad this
Part
is.
of that experience is something called the talk.
UN
It
report
happens
on
regardless
U.S.
of
border
class and
camps.
income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance
There's a
that
whole
they could be
write-up on
targeted,
this.
including by the
It
police,
violates
for no
international
reason
law, they
other than the
believe.
color of their skin. Mr. Vice President,
Like, this is
in the
really
next 2
bad.
minutes,
The whole
I want
camps
you to
thing, they
speak
glazed over
directly to
that.
these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has her graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. What I never had to tell my daughter.
Joe Biden is,
if she's
we are,
pulled over, make sure she puts.
I don't know how long we were
traffic
into this,
stop,
88
put
minutes.
both
We're
hands
88
on
minutes
top
in,
of
and
the
Joe Biden's
box
finally warmed up, guys.
because someone may shoot you.
Here he
A black
goes.
parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street. Making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, yes, yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person.
Police are
$300,000
black people in this country are
$300,000
disproportionately
or
affected by the
someone
criminal
who's
justice
on
system
food
in
stamps.
all ways,
The
man.
fact of the matter
There's
is
really
that
good data
there is
on this.
institutional racism in America.
And
And
it's
we
right,
have always
here is a
said
great way
we've never lived up to it. That we hold
to
these
understand
truths
these
to be
things.
self-evident.
This is
All
a document that
women
has
are
sources in it
guess what?
that goes over a lot of
We
stuff.
have never ever lived up to it, but we've
And
constantly been moving the needle further
here's a great
and further to inclusion.
thing that happened
not
in a
exclusion.
time recently.
This is the first president to
Between
come along and
2012
says,
and
"That's the end of that.
2014, black people
We're
in
not gonna
Ferguson
do that
accounted for
anymore."
85%
We
of vehicle
have to
stops,
provide for
90% of
economic
citations, and
opportunity,
93% of
better
arrests,
education, better healthcare,
despite
better
comprising
access to
67% of the
schooling,
population.
better access to
Okay?
opportunity to
This means
borrow
there's a
money to start
systemic act
businesses.
in
All the
place
things
to
we
make
can
sure.
do, and I
Like,
laid out a clear plan as to how to do
people,
those things.
black, white,
Just to give
green,
people a
brown,
shot.
people
It's about
commit crimes
accumulating the
crimes
ability to
like
have
these
wealth as
types,
well as it is
citation
to be
stops
free
and stuff.
from violence.
Your race is not a
President
determining
Trump, same
factor in these
question to
types
you,
of
and let me
things,
remind
okay?
you of
Everybody
the
is
question.
guilty
I
of
would
this
like
shit.
you to
I got a
speak
speeding
directly
ticket a
to
few
these
weeks ago,
families. Do
okay?
you understand
Everybody
why
gets
these
stopped
parents
for all
fear
kinds of
their
dumb shit like
Yes,
this.
I do.
But when
And
you're
again,
only
he's
67% of
been
the
in government
population
47
and
years, he never
90%
did a
of the
thing, except in
citations,
1994,
that means there's
when
some
he
type
did
of systemic
such
imbalance.
harm to the
You
black
should be
community. And they
somewhat
were called,
equivalent
and
to
he
this
called
number.
them
You should be
super
in the 60 to
predators.
70
And he said
percentile
that.
range at
He said
best.
it, super
That means
predators.
like everyone in your
And they could
population is
never
fucking
live
up all
that
the
down.
time.
1994,
Right? Like,
your
but
crime bill,
you
the
being
super
90% of the
predators. Nobody
citations
has
as a
done more for the
race
black
means you're being
community
targeted.
than Donald Trump.
That's just how the
And if you
statistics
look,
play out here. That you need
with
to
the
understand what this
exception
means.
of
Okay?
Abraham
And that's just
Lincoln,
one of
possible
many
exception,
things
but the exception
where
of
this is
Abraham
this
Lincoln,
is true.
nobody
There's
has
a whole
done
list of
what I've
this.
done. Criminal
I mean,
justice
it's
reform,
insane. insane. This goes on and on.
Joe,
And
didn't do
on.
it.
The
I
systemic
don't even
injustice
think
in our
they tried, 'cause
system
they
is
had no chance of
disgusting.
doing it.
Okay?
They might have
All this
wanted
is
to do
sourced.
it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture, and everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott.
Yeah, he's talking about this stuff, but an analysis has been done on all the reforms Trump has done so far, and the effect is maybe a few thousand people. Maybe. Through all the stuff that Trump has done through executive action, maybe 4 or 5, 6,000 inmates will be affected over the next decade. At best. He hasn't moved any needle in any direction. He just did some save face executive orders. He hasn't done shit yet.
Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back. Because President Obama would never give them long-term funding, and I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is...
What does this have to do with the question at hand?
I got very friendly with them.
Trump hasn't really answered any of the questions well. Either he's bragged about himself, or he just diverts to some other shit that's kind of related.
But your response to that, Vice President?
My response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date.
Trump said that.
He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park 5 innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty.
Gang
none of them
population
of
of
the crime,
the
U.S.
U.S.
suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people sentences.
This is how many people we need to worry about, guys.
Over 1,000.
Marauding our
What he's
cities.
talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail. We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going to do.
But why didn't you do it 4 years ago?
U.S.
Why
gang.
didn't you do that 4 years ago,
Yeah.
even less than that? Why didn't you do it?
This number that we should be worried about, by the way, a lot of these people are in prison. Like, a lot of these people are in gangs in prison, so.
And you guys did nothing.
We did.
You know, Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama.
So in 2011, we had 1.4 million people associated with gangs, and now we've dropped to 850,000. So gangs have been on the decline for a long time.
I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your
I don't know
response
what
to
Trump
that,
was
and then
talking
I do
about. He
have some
rambles a lot.
questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character, you know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race.
Donald Trump lies all the fucking
take
time.
place.
On a daily basis. His tweets are flagged on Twitter like every day because he says something that's misleading.
Closely.
Let me ask some follow-up.
Excuse me.
Please respond,
If
and then we're
this
going to have
stuff
follow-up
is
questions.
true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody's
Take a look
President
at the
Trump, I
laptop
want to
from
stay
hell.
on the issue of race. We're
Joe
talking
Biden's
about
corruption
race.
is...
From hell.
President
Joe
Trump,
Biden has
we're
the
talking about
corruption
race
that a
right
lot
now.
of
I do wanna stay
politicians
on the
have.
issue
In
of
fact, a
race.
lot of
President Trump,
Republican
you've just-
Party members,
Because look,
Very
there
quickly.
are
dip
50 former
right into this
national
stuff too.
intelligence
And
folks
Joe
who
Biden's
said that
corruption
what
is
this
like
he's accusing me
he
of
allows
is a
his party to
Russian
take
plant.
big
They have
donations
said
through
that
their
this
super
has all
PACs.
the kind of four-
His
five
family
former
benefits from
CIA,
his
both parties
political
say what he's
service.
saying is a bunch of
He's
garbage.
got the standard
Nobody
corruption
believes
of
it
an
except
American
his
politician.
and his good
It's
friend
not
Rudy Giuliani.
illegal.
You mean the
Sometimes it's
laptop is,
unethical
you
or
know,
it's nepotism,
another
but
Russia hoax?
that's no
That's
different
exactly
than
what-
Is this
that's
what
all
you're
of them.
exactly
I mean,
what-
that is par for the course. So you can't
laptop is Russia.
you
Russia,
can't
Russia?
lay
wanna stay on
lay
the
that on
issue
Joe
of race.
Biden like it's a
Okay.
sole
Here
problem
we
for
go
him.
again
He
with
has
Russia.
the same
We're
problem they all
continue
have.
on the issue of
Trump
race. Mr.
takes
President,
his
you've
corruption to
described the Black
times
Lives
1,000.
Matter movement as a symbol of hate.
Oh, here comes
You
Trump
shared a
racism.
video
Here
of
it
a man
comes, baby.
chanting
Let's
white
go.
power to millions of your
Let's hear
supporters.
some white
You said
supremacist
that
stuff,
black
Trump. Come on.
professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police.
I didn't say it's okay.
Pigs in a blanket,
I'm
fry
saying it's
them
not a good
like
attack.
bacon.
I'm saying
I said, that's a horrible
Donald.
thing.
I'm
And they
saying
were
Joe
marching down the
Biden
street.
is
And that was my
corruption
first
level is like,
glimpse of Black
hey,
Lives
I
Matter.
benefit
thought
from
it
my
was a bad thing.
status, and I
As
get
far as,
favoritism
my relationships with
through what the things I
all
want to
people.
do,
I
and
think
my
I have
family
great
gets favoritism.
relationships with all people.
Trump
I am the
takes
least
bribes.
racist person in this
Trump
But what do you say to Americans
owes
who are
money to
concerned
foreign
by that?
governments
I
or
mean,
foreign
I don't want to
entities.
say I got
Trump
criminal justice
is
reform.
really bad in a lot of ways.
Reform,
Trump got
opportunity
impeached
zones. I took
for doing
care
a
of black
scheme
colleges
to
and
get a
universities.
foreign
I
government to
don't
announce
know what to say.
investigations into a
They can
political
say
rival.
anything. I mean,
That's
they can say
illegal.
anything.
Trump does
It's very-
Trump's
it
corruption
makes me
is
sad
illegal. Its
because
illegality
I
is really
am
bad.
the least
Joe Biden's corruption
racist
is
person. I
he
can't
takes
even
advantage
see
of
the
his
audience
power and
because it's so
position.
dark.
Those are
But I don't
different
care
types
who's
of
in the audience.
corruption.
I'm the least
And I'm not saying it's
racist
okay.
person
I
in this
despise this type of
Okay,
corruption.
Vice President
I
Biden,
think
let
it's
me ask
also
you
bad.
very quickly, and then
But
I
you
have a
can't
follow-up
put them in the
question.
same
Abraham
realm.
Lincoln
They're
was
totally
one of the most
different.
racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. He started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
Yeah, Trump. The reason why Trump will say something the reason why Trump has some favoritism to white supremacist groups or neo-Nazi groups or right-wing extremist groups, the reason Trump does that is because they vote for him. So he'll say something that emboldens them or says, hey, you guys are okay people too, even though your ideas suck, even though he doesn't say that. But that's what he infers. He's like, hey, I know you guys have ideas people don't like, but I like you because you vote for me. Then he'll wait a few days or a week, and then he'll denounce what the group stands for. So he's gotten their support, he honeypots them, and then he denounces them to save face. Trump does this time and time again. I don't know if Trump is a white supremacist or any of that, but he knows he can use white supremacists to boost his position, and that's what he does. So whether you're enabling white supremacists or you are a white supremacist, those are equally guilty things. You can't do one and be like, I'm innocent of white supremacy if you're enabling it. You're just as bad.
Whose families are still to this day, some of them suffering
The FBI also says
So speak to those
that
families. Why should
white
they vote?
supremacist groups are
One of the things
the
is
most
in the
likely
80s,
to
we passed
cause
100%,
violence in our
all
country
100
up
senators
and
voted
around this
for
election.
a bill on drugs.
Yeah,
How
he
to
probably
deal with
did learn that
drugs.
from
It
his
was a
business stuff.
mistake. I've been trying to change the sense and particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board.
Yeah,
That's
we should
what we should be spending
we should
money on.
have a
That's why I set up
top-level
drug
drug
courts, which were
addiction
never funded by Republican
system in
friends.
this or
They should not be going
rehab
to jail
system in this country.
for a drug or
Like,
an
there's a
alcohol
lot of people that
problem.
could be
They should
left out of
going
prison
into
and
treatment.
get help.
Treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done because I think the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to the drug. But they were not in the crime bill.
But why didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done?
That's a strong.
That's what I'm gonna do
Trump had a
when I
good line
become
just there.
president.
It's
You were vice
bullshit, but
president along with
Trump hasn't gotten
Obama
anything
as
done.
your
He's
president.
gotten
Yeah.
giant tax
For
cuts
8
done.
years.
He's failed on
Why
healthcare
didn't
a
you
bunch
get
of
it done?
times.
You had
He
8
lies
years
a
to
lot.
get it
Trump
done.
doesn't
Now
get
you're
shit
saying
done.
You're going to get it done because
And with
you all
COVID,
talk,
everything he
no
did
action.
get
We got
done,
a lot of
all of it got
We released
reversed
38,000.
anyway, so it
They
doesn't
got
matter now.
38,000 prisoners left from the.
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. We have
During
there were
Obama's
over 1,000
administration,
people
more
who had
prisoners
been
were released from
punished.
federal prison
We
than
have-
any
in
other
fact,
president.
We're
So yeah,
the ones that put in the
that's true.
legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of
I don't know if
police departments,
38,000
what
is the
they're doing,
number,
how
but
they're
I know that they
conducting
did
themselves.
release the
I
most.
could go on, but we began the process. We began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I
Quick
just
response,
asked,
and then we're
I
gonna
just
move
asked
on
one
to climate
question.
change.
A lot of Trump's
Why
policies are
didn't you do it
non-policies
in the
too.
8 years, a short time ago?
Obama was
Why
a good
didn't you do it? You just
statesman.
said, "I'm gonna do
I wouldn't
that, I'm
say
gonna
he's
do this."
well.
You
He
put
does rank high on the
thousands
president
of
list, but
mostly black
Obama has a lot of
women in
criticisms, too.
prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why,
Because-
Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice
the
President
Obama
Biden, and then we're
administration
gonna move on
advanced
to
a
the
lot
next
of things
section.
for a lot of people. Gay
in
marriage became
Congress.
legal. All kinds of things happened.
That's the answer.
Well, you
Okay.
got to talk them into it, Joe.
All right.
Sometimes you got to talk them into it.
We're gonna
Oh,
move
you
on
got to
to our
talk
next
in
section.
Republicans that say they'll never work with you. The Republicans would just filibuster.
Gentlemen,
did
we're
what we
running out of
already done.
time, so we got to get on to
Okay.
climate change, please. You both have very different visions on climate change. President Trump, you
That
said
was a weak answer from
environmental
Biden. He
regulations
should have said-
hurt
framed that a lot
jobs in the
better,
energy
but-
sector. Vice President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best
Trump is
carbon
using a double-edged
emission
sword, yeah.
numbers that we've had in 35 years.
I'm
Under
pretty sure
this
Trump is
administration,
bullshitting right now.
we are
I don't
working
know the
so
stats
well
on
with
this off the
industry,
top of my
but here's
head.
what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is.
He said, "Look at
filthy.
Russia," didn't
The
say anything.
Paris
Look
Accord,
at
I took this
India.
out
It's
because
filthy.
We were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice.
What's he talking
tens of
about? He's
millions
just on
of
some
jobs,
nonsense right now.
Thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change, climate warming, global warming is an existential threat to humanity.
I know.
We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time.
Yeah, a lot of what he
We're
Trump
gonna
just said
pass
is
the
BS,
point of
dude.
no
You can go
return
fact check it real
within the
quick if
next
you want,
8 to
but
10 years. 4 more years of this man.
all that
eliminating
stuff that he
all
said
the
about the
regulations
environment, I
that
think
were put
was
in by
not
us
true.
To clean up the climate, to limit the.
I like that. I'm saying his
limited
specific
emissions,
stats were a
will
little
put
off.
us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations.
Yeah,
as
Trump's
well as
administration
local
rolled back a
people
lot
worried about
of
jobs
environmental
to
regulations.
support my
He put a
climate
lobbyist in charge of the
because what it
EPA,
does, it will create
and he got in trouble for
millions
doing a bunch of
new
fucking illegal
good-paying
stuff.
jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels
Look,
of oil in the
a
process,
government's
and creating
program
a
to
significant number of jobs.
modernize everyone's
And by the
buildings
way,
and
the
homes in
whole
America
idea of
and giving
what this
everybody
is
a
all
better
gonna do, it's
deal
gonna
on their
create
energy
millions
bills
of
and
jobs.
bringing down
And it's going to
costs
clean
over
the environment.
time
Our health
means a
and our
lasting
jobs are
effect.
at stake.
That means once we
That's what's
go on
happening.
that path,
And
there's
what
no
right
turning
now,
back.
by the way,
And then
Wall
other
Street firms
companies are
indicate
forced to
that
adapt. You press
plan-
people in the right direction
my-
through government
my
policy.
plan will,
That's
in fact, create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street.
government
And
spending
I'll
on
create
your
$1 trillion
own
more in
citizens is
economic
not
growth
bad,
than his
guys.
proposal
It's
does.
not.
on
It's good
climate,
for you.
Just on the economy.
President Trump, your response.
They came out and said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan. That his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do,
Oh.
if you look at his plan,
Nothing
his
to do with
environmental
climate.
plan, you know who developed it? AOC plus 3. They know nothing about the climate.
Joe Biden's plan is so
got a
much
good
different
line
than
of
the Green
stuff,
New
but she
Deal.
knows nothing
He
about
took a
climate.
lot of stuff from
they're
them,
all
but
hopping
he
through
has a
hoops for
totally
AOC
different
plus
thing going on,
Look.
guys. Let me just point it out.
Their real plan costs $100 trillion.
There you go.
If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years,
here you
we
go.
would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because they
let's
want
see.
to make
Let's look at the
bigger
highlights.
windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely
Trump
thing.
never talks about
This is the
investing in
craziest
industries
plan that
like this.
anybody has ever seen.
I just want you
And this
guys to
wasn't
know.
done by smart people. This wasn't done by
Like,
anybody. Frankly,
these
I
are-
don't even know how it can be good
All right.
politically. They want to spend $100 trillion.
They talk
That's
up
their
like
real
the way
number. He's
Joe
trying to say
Biden's
it was
plans
50.
differ from Trump's
It's
executive
$100
orders
trillion.
is
They
Trump's
wanna
executive
knock down
orders will
buildings
say
and
things
build
like
new
this.
buildings
Trump will
with
say,
little, tiny,
for
small
the administration's going to
windows.
support
Many
agriculture
other
and
things.
conservation.
Many
We're
other
going to
things.
create jobs in the climate smart agriculture, resilience, blah blah blah, including a bunch of jobs somewhere, etc. And then it'll end right here. That's the end of Trump's executive order.
With these numbers.
Then
$100 trillion.
Joe Biden will go, we're going to
Give me
provide
a
good work
break.
with a choice
This
to join,
plan was-
continue
this
membership
is
in a
plans
union,
endorsed by every
or
major-
doing other
every
things.
major environmental group and
It goes
every
in depth
labor group.
exactly how they're going to
Labor,
do it.
Because
Like,
they know
it goes
future
through each
lies.
point.
The future lies in us being
Okay,
able
and
to
it
breathe, and they
explains
know
how
that
they
good
might do
jobs are
these
getting us
things.
there. And by the way, the
Trump's plans always are a couple pages, and they're like, we support this, 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 and this, and we're going to support more of that.
Solar
That's
energy
it. That's
and
all
wind.
Trump's
He
shit
thinks
ever
wind
is.
Causes cancer. Windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, 45, 50 bucks an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump,
Excuse me.
please
We are
respond, and then I have some
We are
follow-ups.
energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent.
Imagine
I know
being
more
energy
about
independent
wind than
without
you do.
having to
It's
pollute the damn
extremely
world for
expensive.
it.
Kills all the birds.
I believe the number
it's
was-
very intermittent.
yeah.
Got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both
How
Germany
many
and China. And
companies
the fumes
do
coming
the
up, if you're a
most
believer
pollution?
in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is
Here, The
more than
Guardian wrote about
anything
this
that
3
we're
years
talking
ago.
about with
Just
natural gas, which is
100
right
companies
one of
responsible
the
for 71% of
Solar.
global emissions.
I love solar,
Imagine if
but
all of
solar
these
doesn't quite have it
industries
yet.
were
It's
able
not
to do some
powerful
type of
yet
renewable
to really
resource
run
that
our
didn't
big,
pollute the
beautiful
planet like
factories
that.
we need
This
to
is the biggest
compete
problem
with
right
the
here, you
world.
guys.
So
False.
it's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the economy,
Trump loves
get
claiming
rid of your
credit for
oil
the economy.
industry.
The economy is at a
And what
high
about
when he
fracking?
took over.
All right, let
He
me-
added
let
this
me-
much,
let me
and he's
allow
like,
Vice
I did a great
President
job.
to respond.
That's Trump,
said
guys.
I
Trump's like,
oppose fracking.
the economy was here. He
I
brought
did
it.
show the tape. Put it
Obama's
on your
administration
website.
ended
Put
here.
it on.
Trump
Put it on
added
your
this
website.
much, and he's like,
Fact of
I'm the
the matter is
best.
he's flat lying.
Would you
Flat-
rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025.
What
I
Biden
will
is
do with
saying
fracking
is
over
an
time
inevitability.
is make sure that
We
can
do have
capture
to get rid
the
of fossil
emissions
fuels,
from the fracking,
diluting
capture
the planet
emissions
like
from
it
gas.
does.
We
It's
can do
it's
that, and we
irreparable
can do that
damage.
by
It's going to get to a
investing
point
money
where
and doing it, but
even
it's a
going renewable
transition
won't
to that.
reverse
I
the
have
damage
one more
that was
question in
done.
this pod, and then
Excuse
we
me,
have-
he was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I
Good.
am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against
Yeah,
it.
they've been
Fracking on
their
federal
fracking
land,
message.
no
Their
fracking
fracking
and no
message has
oil
been all
on
over the
federal
Let
place.
me ask this
I
final
did-
question in this section.
They've been
and
back
then
and
I wanna
forth on the
move to our
fracking
final
thing, but that
section.
doesn't mean anything.
President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they're making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look
Trump's
at
like-
the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic or Black.
Oh,
or
yeah,
Asian,
dude, you can curse. I don't care.
It's 9 times greater the percentage gain than it was in 3 years than it was under.
If you hear
8
me saying
years
fuck, I mean you can
of
definitely say
the
it.
Two of them. to put it nicely. 9 times more. Now, somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it.
So
And we
Trump's
saved it
answer right
again
now,
a
guys,
number
is
of months ago
what
when
is your
oil
answer
was
to people getting
crashing because
harmed?
of the pandemic.
Oh,
We
well, they
saved
get
it.
paid a lot
We
of
got
money,
Saudi
so
one
it's
of our
okay.
relationships.
That's Trump's
We got
argument right
Saudi
now.
Arabia,
You guys understand how
Mexico,
fucked up
and
that is,
Russia
right?
To cut back way back. We
Like, that's
saved the
not
oil
good.
Industry, and now it's very vibrant again.
All
And
right.
everybody has very inexpensive gasoline.
So by saying they get paid a lot of money,
Your
Trump is
response,
acknowledging
and
the
then we're gonna have
question
a
and
final
saying that,
question from
yes, they are getting
My
harmed.
response is that those people
Like,
that
that's
are
so
what they call
bad.
fence lines, he doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that in fact pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And all the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turn in the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them, it matters how you keep them safe. What do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions, the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final
Would he
question.
close
It
down
falls-
the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close
it
down the
falls-
oil
By
industry?
the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes. I
Oh,
will
that's a big
transition.
statement.
It is
Yeah,
a
the
big
oil
statement.
industry is
I would
one of the
stop
largest
the
lobbies in our country.
because
They also
the oil
do some of the
industry
most pollution.
pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal, but you
That's a
can't
big
do that.
statement.
Well,
It's not a
let me
big
finish
statement.
the
It's
statement.
absolutely
Because it has to
factual.
be replaced by renewable energy over time. Over
Yeah,
time.
if
And
oil
I've
companies
stopped
were
giving
smart, they would
the
start
oil industry-
transitioning
I'd
part of their
stop giving
industry to
them federal
renewables so
subsidies.
that they're ready to
You
make
won't
that
give federal
switch.
subsidies
I hope
the-
to God they're
to
that smart.
gas- excuse me, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do
All
give
right.
it to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that,
Well,
Texas?
if he
Will you
helps them
remember that,
transition, that's by
Pennsylvania?
definition
Vice
not
President
destroying
Biden, Let me
them.
give you 10 seconds.
That's
to
by
respond, and then I
definition
have to get
helping
to the
them.
final question.
You know, if that happens, if that's the
Take
reality
everything
we
out
live
of
in, and
context. The
Biden
point
just
is,
ends all those companies
we
by
have
not
to
helping
move
them, then I
toward
guess you can call him a liar.
a
But
net
as of
zero
right now,
emissions.
he's talking
First
about
place to do
helping
that
them
by the year
transition to something
2035
new.
is an energy
He's like the
reduction
oil
of
company's
2050
grandpa.
total.
He's like encouraging him,
One
Is he
final
hey
gonna
guys,
sign it,
you
though?
don't have
No,
to
we're
keep
finished
pumping
with
oil
this.
out of the
We're
ground.
gonna
You
get
can
to
come
our
along with
final
us and do
question.
something
We have
new.
to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our
rejoin
final
Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right,
That'll
this
cost you
is
a
about
trillion.
Yeah, we need to go
leadership,
back into that
gentlemen.
agreement and start using
this
it as a
first
tool.
question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this
America
is your
can set the
inauguration.
world's policy. I
What
want
will you
everyone
say
to
in
recognize
your
that
address
if
to
you don't think we
Americans
have that
who
pull. I mean,
did
Trump
not
has
vote
weakened
for
it,
you?
sure, but
You'll each have
at the end of the
1 minute,
day,
starting with you, Mr.
if
have
we
to
tell
make the
everybody, if we
country
make a statement to the
totally
UN and we
successful
say,
as
hey
it was
guys,
prior to the
this is
global
our target
pandemic
and we
from China.
suggest any
We're
ally of us to
rebuilding it,
follow.
And we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, etc.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Go back. Before the plague
She's
came
just
and
a little,
before,
I bet you
was
she's just
getting
a little
calls
traumatized from watching
people that
Trump
were
yell at Chris
not
Wallace for an
normally
hour.
people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's
Trump
taxes.
hasn't cut
and he wants to
taxes.
put new regulations
Oh,
on
I
everything.
love that.
He will kill it. If he gets in, you will
The
have
American,
depression,
the
likes of
American
which you've
Enterprise
never seen.
Institute did a study of Joe
The
Biden's tax
401ks will go to
proposals.
hell, and it'll be a
What did
very,
it
very
find?
sad
Here are
day
the
for
key
this
points.
country.
All right. Vice President Biden, same question.
We
to you.
estimate that
What
Joe
will you
Biden's
say
proposals
during
would
your
raise federal
inaugural
revenue by
address to
2.8
Americans
trillion
who
over the
did
next
not
decade.
vote for you?
I will say, I'm an American president. I represent all of you.
Here's the
whether
big
you vote for
one.
me or
This is the
against me.
big one about Joe
And I'm gonna
Biden's
make
tax
sure that
proposal,
you're
guys.
represented. I'm
In
gonna give you
2021,
hope. We're gonna
Biden's
move.
proposals
We're
would
gonna
increase
choose
taxes
science
on
over
average
fiction.
for the top
We're gonna
5%
choose
of
hope over
households
fear.
and
We're
reduce
gonna
taxes
choose to
on
move
households in the
forward
bottom
because
at
there are enormous
95%.
Enormous opportunities.
Trump's
to make
tax
things better.
cuts,
We can grow this economy.
81% of those went to people in this bracket
we
here.
can make sure that our economy is being
And corporations who
run
got
and
permanent
moved
tax
and
cuts.
motivated by clean energy,
This
creating
place,
millions
American
and millions
Enterprise
of jobs.
Institute, is
And that's
a
the fact.
right-wing
That's what we're gonna do.
group,
And I'm
or
gonna
not
say,
right-wing.
as
They
I've
are a
said at the
conservative
beginning,
think tank.
what is on
Their
the ballot
reports
here is
usually
the
have a
character of this
conservative
country.
point of view.
Decency,
honor,
That's just how they report,
respect,
and they
treating
identify
people
as
with
that.
dignity, making sure that
They
everyone has an
say
even chance.
themselves
And I'm gonna make
that
sure
the
you
bottom
get that.
95%
You
of
haven't been doing it
Americans,
the last
and I,
5
by the
years.
way, I read through
All
this
right,
entire
I wanna
report. It's
thank
only
you
14
both for a
pages.
very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate.
But it
Really
also talks
appreciate
about
it.
how the
President
economy
Trump, former Vice
will
President
increase
Joe
over Joe
Biden.
Biden's
Thank
plan.
you to Belmont University
Like, there's no
for hosting
question.
us tonight, and most importantly,
So,
thank you to those
that's just
watching
one of the.
tonight.
Trump went through a
Election day is
firestorm of lies.
November 3rd. Don't forget to vote. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go watch some CNN and see how that's going.
Trump.
I want to see the Daniel Dale guy.
more
Yeah,
like
Trump
a
Trump
regular
comes out of this
person
like
might, theoretically,
52 to
I think it's fair
48.
to say that
Joe
Trump
Biden
supporters
didn't
and
trail far
Republican
too
office
far
holders
behind, but
can
this one was a win
relax
for
the
Trump
night. They
simply
can
because he didn't do
exhale.
what he did last time.
He didn't set himself on fire tonight like he did at the first debate. I mean, he did lie like Pinocchio, and I'm sure Daniel Dale will get to that in the fact-checking section. But beyond that, it's
Yeah,
fair
I
to
wanna
say
watch
that
Daniel
President
Dale.
Trump got in a couple clean hits when it came to Vice President Biden, when it came to the 1994 crime bill, when it came to Joe Biden being in politics for so long. He even probably fed some raw meat to his base successfully using Breitbart, Fox lingo that most voters have no idea what he's talking about. But he got those shots in there, however, based in reality, they are. The problem for the president, as I see it, is twofold. One, Joe Biden did fine. He had a fine performance. He definitely
Hello?
met the threshold. And given that so much of this election is a referendum on Donald Trump, and he is the underdog, according to polls, Joe Biden is ahead. Joe Biden did nothing to
Hello?
disqualify himself. It was a fine
Hey.
performance.
Hey.
And the second problem is
I can't hardly hear
Joe
you.
Biden
Okay, hold on.
scored points. He got his licks in on issues that I think might affect voters more when it comes to the coronavirus pandemic, when it comes to healthcare and the fact that the Trump administration has not offered any sort of viable alternative to Obamacare. And then there was that rough moment that had to do with the fact that of the child family separation policy, there are still more than 500 kids that the Trump administration has not been able to place back with the parents whose arms they snatched them from. So I think at the end of the day, Dana, the race has been fairly stable. I think, there might be some movement when it comes to soft Trump supporters who are unsure, feeling like, well, that's a more normal person than the last debate. And maybe even some points scored in terms of getting black men who really hate that 1994 crime bill and their families on board, perhaps. But I don't see anything that will change the trajectory of the race in a significant way. What do you think?
No, I agree with you. Look, we all described in colorful terms what we thought of the first presidential debate, and this was a debate. It's what Americans should expect when they are watching two people who want to be the leader of their country, the leader of their free world, to try to figure out where they stand on policy issues and where they are when it comes to their character. As you said, there were a lot of things that Daniel will get to that were just flat out lies, and they got off course talking about things that probably most people don't care about, especially in where we are in a pandemic and in very, very tough times. But Donald Trump listened to his advisors this time. I talked to a lot of them going into the debate. They told me exactly what they were trying to get him to do, which is much like they did the last time. He didn't listen last time. He did this time for the most part. But you know what? So did Joe Biden. He did what he practiced to do.
Yeah, and honestly, this debate was just the same content from the first debate, except that now you can understand what people are saying. And so in that respect, it was better because people could really evaluate the differences between what was being said. But in terms of the substance of what was being said, the president fell into some of the same patterns, continued to downplay the virus and the effect of this upswing that the country is currently in right now, heading into the holiday season. He kept doing something that I think Joe Biden actually tried to exploit, which is dividing the country into red states and blue states, repeatedly talking about the red states or the blue states are doing this and the blue states
your
want this,
Democrats,
and
your Democrat governors
want
yeah.
that. And if you watch the ads that are on television for the Biden campaign right now, the message right now is not about, coronavirus. It's not about fracking. It's not about any of those things. It's about unity. It's about bringing the country together. And you saw Joe Biden repeatedly saying, I'm not going to do that. I think the president really walked back into that trap, because if you listen to him day to day, like we all do, you hear the same content that he gives off in all of his interviews, in his media gaggles. It happened on the debate stage in a calmer tone, but it still isn't bridging the gap with the voters in the middle.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that the president has been lying about the coronavirus pandemic since February. I mean, just straight up lying about it. It's going to be over by Easter. I could go through them, but you get the point. And we cover this every day. The three of us and all of the journalists at CNN cover this. And the truth of the matter is the president did it again tonight. He said, we're turning the curve. We're not going into a dark winter. The vaccine's going to be here in weeks. None of this is true. Every health expert, including
Continue to criticize Fauci.
Yeah, every health expert, including those in his administration, Anderson, every single one says what Joe Biden said tonight, and they all say that what President Trump said tonight to the American people is not true. And this is the fundamental problem with the president's pitch, is that the country can see that he's lying about the pandemic.
All right.
Yeah, and
Yeah, he is lying about the pandemic.
Have already voted and will vote by Election Day. Well, let's go to our team standing by. David Axelrod, just for everybody's quick take, what do you think?
Look, fundamentally, if you're ahead and you get a draw, you win. And both of them were better than they were last time. But I thought that Joe Biden held his own, and that's all he had to do. The trajectory of this race did not change, and as Abby pointed out, he did some big business in terms of speaking as an American president, and swiping at Trump.
Yeah, my final score is 52% Trump, simply because everyone that likes Trump, that's exactly the performance they were hoping for. He certainly turned it around from last time, and Trump gets way more credit from going from dumpster fire to just straight liar. So Joe Biden was pretty much exactly the same. He started out really slow, got really good towards the end. I mean, that's Joe Biden through and through. So I think Joe Biden was a lot more factual with his stuff. No, I know that's true.
It was well, A, it's a lie, and B, the statement itself is just so stunning to me that I almost couldn't believe that someone would really say that. And then, I'm just looking over the whole debate. Overall, what the president was trying to do is present himself as the outsider, talking about you politicians, when in fact, he's been running the country for the last 4 years.
Yeah, Trump's a politician now. He can't be like, I'm not you. He is.
Santorum, he did a lot of what you said he was going to do.
Yeah, he sure did. He delivered. You guys watched a different debate than I did, and certainly from everything I'm hearing from my
See, this is what I'm sure a lot of my Republican friends feel. What Rick Santorum is saying is correct.
He completely skewered Joe Biden. You mentioned the point where he called Biden a politician looking in the camera. I think every time after that, everyone thought about that line. That here he is, just looking.
Yeah, Trump had a couple good lines like that. Although he is a politician, so he's just as guilty now. But
how many people pick up on this? Joe Biden, at the end of I think, looking at his watch. If you recall the campaign with George H.W. Bush, looked at his watch because he was sweating it out. And I think that's what a lot of people were saying, that Joe Biden was bobbly, a little shaky at the end, and looking at his watch to see if this thing would be over. I think that's going to be.
I don't think any of that's.
Man?
Hey, look, I think Donald Trump did his.
Rick Santorum's an idiot. Just everybody knows.
Not good enough. Bottom line, it was the same stuff with a little bit less volume on it, but no plan for the future. A big apology for a bunch of failures, and then smacking it at Joe Biden all the time. But he literally did nothing that he hasn't always done. He sounded better, he looked better, but there was nothing there. There's nothing there. And some of this
Yeah, Trump was really hollow. He was just falling back on all his talking points. He had nothing of substance whatsoever.
And no apology. I mean,
The dumbest thing he said all night was right near the end when they asked him about. They're like, hey, what about the people that are affected by companies and plants that pollute and harm their lives? And he's like, well, they all get employed and paid really well, so it's, that's number one. Like, basically he's saying, as long as they may be getting hurt, but they're getting paid money, so it doesn't matter. That's basically what he's saying. I mean, he didn't say those words, but that's the insinuation you can get from what he laid out. I want to see the fact check. Show me the fact check, damn it. God damn it. Dude, they're going to make me go to their website? Are you kidding me? Okay. I guess we can... Fuck. Let's just read through it instead of listening to it. So... Yeah. Let's see how many of these I correctly identified. Okay, so the first one is that Trump is saying we're rounding the corner. Like I said before, everything's showing a worsening of cases, positivity rates, hospitalizations, and deaths. Everything is on the rise on all metrics, okay? So that's just how it is. Trump claimed, I remember telling you this was kind of BS. He said there's 2.2 or 2.1 million people that would have died, which is a report from March that predicted that we could lose that much if we took no preventative measures at all. Like, if everybody just went about their life and we pretended like it didn't exist at all, everybody, all Americans together, then 2.2 million would have died by some point this year. So, up until where we are now or by the end of the year, we'd have in the 2 million range of deaths. Obviously, even with Trump as president, there's going to be states that react differently. We live in a republic. States can act independently of the federal government. They often do. And they started doing their own thing. I mean, my state announced a shutdown pretty early on before we even had COVID here. Or, when we had early signs of COVID. We had a few cases, etc. But, nobody was going to do nothing. So Trump likes to state this, but the reality is like people did stuff regardless of Trump's inaction. So Trump doesn't get to take credit for what a lot of other people did, waiting for his direction. Trump sucks on this, and he just keeps repeating that. Biden called him xenophobic. Yeah, I was telling you guys this needs context. Let's see what it says. It's not clear that the president ever knew about Trump's China travel restrictions when he called Trump xenophobic. Biden has never explicitly linked his accusation of xenophobia. Blah, blah. Yeah, I don't care about this. It's dumb. Let's see if Vosh is still streaming. I want to watch him for a little bit.
Shut down the discourse for the most part. I suppose you have to keep in mind, though, that conservative media is the Trumpers are 100% in on the idea that they have a 100% chance of winning.
Yeah, I totally agree.
They're all going
everybody
to be,
that's conservative thinks this is Trump's best debate,
victory,
and I agree. He
but
was
it's
the most put
insane
together
talk.
he's ever
Do
been.
not
This is
fall
dumb.
for it. Oh, I see. We are really, really, really consolidating, aren't we, here? This really is a last gasp. Sadly, the overwhelming amount of violent crime in our major cities is committed by blacks and Hispanics. A tough subject must be discussed, and he's getting ratioed to hell. My goodness. I mean, again, we shouldn't be surprised by this. In like from a leftist perspective, we know exactly what type of people he's trying to appeal to here. Oh, this is from 2013. My bad. I'm sorry. You got me all hyped up. My apologies. I didn't even think to look. You all linked it. Why are you linking me tweets from 2013, you fucking losers? Jesus. Come on, guys. Come on. Gee, I trust you guys. I just look. The only thing that I saw right here was the 2 response tweets right here, 21 minutes, 22, 26. So I thought, okay, I didn't think to look at the actual fucking tweet time. So, okay, you got me. All right. Okay, you got me. You fake newsed me, okay? You Project Veritast me. Very nicely done. I'm very proud of you. Yeah. Why are you all linking me so many tweets? I don't care. I genuinely don't care. What I do care about is the future of this country. And the future of this country is in large part going to be determined by whether we want to see this country headed by a senile old fool who seems to have somewhat decent intentions, or at least as far as neoliberals go, or a death cultist who is constitutionally incapable of telling the truth. That is the range of options we have laying before us. I'm confident with my choice, and I hope more Americans become confident with theirs. Remember, even with the most optimistic projection of voter turnout, it seems like about only half of the eligible voting population is going to actually vote. Or sorry, not half. I'm sorry, 60 to 65%.
Yo, 65% voter participation would be.
There are a lot of people in this country.
That would be great.
Who could.
We usually are in like
vote,
47.
And
all
I'd be
right,
willing to
we
bet,
need to
by
get
the
up in
way,
those
if you
60s,
really press
okay?
down on the people who aren't going to be voting, I bet they'd be Biden supporters if they actually went out and voted. I bet you anything. Trump supporters vote.
Yeah,
for Trump.
you don't. The reason this election is easy is because you don't have to like Joe Biden at all to see that
wacky debate.
Trump is clearly taking us in wrong directions constantly, especially with the things he lies about all the time. So
it's a very scary time.
I don't see how any of us can sit here and think that's a good person to lead us to anything. He hasn't led us to anywhere but confusion and division. Like, he's really bad. So we're gonna pick the senile old guy, hopefully.
The effect of the debate on the polling will, of course, take some time to be known. Wait, what is this? Wait, hold on. Mitch McConnell's hand is discolored, but he swears nothing is wrong. What the fuck is this? What in the
I saw this
world am I looking at here? Holy shit. Man, maybe QAnon is right, because the only thing that I can think of that could preserve life in that state is fucking virgin child blood or whatever. What the fuck? What?
Let's see what Twitter's up to. Okay. Yeah, Trump did say that. That was pretty dumb of him to say. That's funny. Let's see what Daily Caller thinks. I bet you all this people, yeah, Trump. I mean, Daily Caller people usually are right wing, so. I think it's Trump. Biden has been avoiding his own problems. Yeah, you guys, it doesn't matter if Joe Biden has problems from 40 years ago. They're not prevalent right now today. All of the things you accuse him of politically. First of all, he hasn't been in office for 4 years. He hasn't had any effect on shit. Not to mention, all along the way, Joe Biden is a flip-flopper. He's a neoliberal. Anything that he put into place at time that was popular, he just moves on to the next popular thing. So you can't say, and right now what's popular for most Americans is good for us. So we want the person that's going to be our little weasel and do all those things, which is Joe Biden. Trump, like Voss just said, is in charge of a fucking death cult. And no one, like, I just want to know, if you're a fan of Trump, why don't you ever criticize the guy? Like, You guys know I'm lefty as fuck, and I love Obama, and I will shit on that guy for 5 hours straight. Why is it that I know so many people that like Trump that just refuse to be critical of him ever? You can't ever say he's wrong or that he lied or any of that stuff. You just want to point at whoever Trump's current enemy is and parrot his talking points. All I want to see is some people that I know, that I respect, critique their guy. That's it. Critique your guy. He deserves to be critiqued. He's the leader. That's what it's all about. Okay, anyway, let's go. Let's keep scrolling. See if there's anything. Trump is Andrew Yang. Trump has definitely been coached and listened to feedback. Yes. Trump, they probably got really mad at him for going off the rails. Let's see Daniel Dale's fact check. I want to see.
I go to America!
What's up, Rudy? Where you been, Rudy?
Now if you still?
I heard you're in this, Rudy.
Of language, I guess, in this campaign, but one candidate just called the other candidate a racist, and you know, it's not out of the ordinary.
So you can make the argument, Gloria.
It's not out of the
you can make the argument, Gloria, that Joe Biden got in the gutter and that Donald Trump didn't in this
Well,
race.
no, I won't make that
tonight.
argument. I won't make that argument.
Because I think he did.
I won't make that argument because I think that...
you think it's true? I don't think it's true.
There are reasons to believe that it is true.
Nobody
Absolutely.
called Donald Trump a racist before he was president of the United States.
And Donald Trump...
That's not true.
Other than the Central Park thing, but Donald Trump...
Whoa, Rick Santorum just hand-waving around casual racism like
Other than
that.
the Central Park thing. The Central Park thing actually was 5 human beings' lives who were sent to prison, convicted for crimes that they did not commit, and he refuses. I mean, you know that, Rick.
And also, he says, you know, justice reform. Oh, I really wanted that. We'll talk to Van Jones about how they had to talk this president into the kind of into that kind of reform that he went into this kicking and screaming, and screaming.
Rick, 3 weeks ago,
I wonder
3
if
weeks ago,
Daniel Dale
we were
went
talking about him refusing to condemn the Proud Boys.
Right.
Here's Daniel Dale.
It isn't as if Gloria is pulling that out of the air. This has been part of the president's political project. He does dog whistle, and he does stand down when he's called on to condemn racist organizations, and that has been a problem for him. And you know that as well. It makes you uncomfortable as well.
Van, go ahead.
This is a complicated thing here. First of all, the right wing always says nobody called him a racist before he was president. It's just not true. Once he started on the birther thing, that shocked a lot. Donald Trump did have allies in the black community. Donald Trump had been a supporter of civil rights causes. In fact, Donald Trump had been a supporter of Kamala Harris, believe it or not. But when he went down the road of the birther thing, that changed his relationship to the black community. That it did. And then
I don't really care about this commentary.
Don't go well together.
This is dumb. I want to hear the fact checking.
On the one hand, he has done good stuff on criminal justice, on opportunity zones, and on black colleges. That's true. But he's also appealed to white supremacist organizations and other stuff. And so what continues to happen is, I think that campaign wants credit for the good stuff they've done, and they don't take responsibility for the horrific climate that they have emboldened and helped in this country. If you are a black parent or a parent of color trying to raise your kids in this environment, you do not appreciate the role that Donald Trump has played in poisoning the atmosphere. And so two things can be true at the same time, but we will find out in a few days if this coalition they're trying to build, on the one hand doing some good things for African Americans, but then emboldening our worst enemies is a good strategy. I think it's not a good strategy.
Yeah, the reality is that the black community prior to COVID had the lowest unemployment rate, lowest poverty rates. I mean, you can't make up what he has done in focusing in on minority communities and trying to do things that particularly lift them up and spend time and effort, do lots of events at the White House, I mean, look, this is not just, a talking point. He's done the work, and he's not getting credit for it. And to do the work and then at the same time be called a racist, to me, it doesn't make sense.
Well, listen. There are two things that can be true at the same time. I appreciate the fact that they have done some reach out. I appreciate the fact that they have been trying to grow their party out. Frankly, it makes the African American community in a much better position when both parties are taking our pain seriously. So I appreciate that. But the problem is, which you guys don't want to take responsibility for, is that first of all, he lied on Obama's record. Obama did do stuff on criminal justice reform, the Fair Sentencing Act, clemency, and in fact, the Department of Justice under Obama did a lot of good things on criminal justice that then Jeff Sessions undid.
This is the big one here,
both
guys.
Of these presidents, Obama and Trump, Obama did better.
Neither the Senate report nor Trump's have provided any evidence that the payment was corrupt or that Hunter Biden committed wrongdoing. That's correct. No evidence has come out yet.
I think it's not right. I don't think most African Americans feel that we have a president that really understands the pain that we're going through and the damage that he is doing to the climate of the country. Has Trump not gotten fair credit for some stuff he's done? Yeah, but that's his own fault. It's his own fault because of the stuff that he does that pollutes the atmosphere. That's just the truth.
I want to go to Daniel Dale with his first fact check of the night.
Okay, good.
Let's go to Wolf. Wolf?
Art Anderson, thanks very much. Excellent discussion. Daniel Dale has got his first fact check of the night here, and he's going to be doing plenty of them over the next few hours of our special coverage. Daniel, let's start with the big picture on how much the candidates got right or wrong tonight.
Wolf, President Trump was better behaved tonight, but he lied more. This was just a bombardment of dishonesty, much of which we've heard before at his campaign rallies, about subjects big and small, important stuff like the coronavirus pandemic, about Biden's policies, about his own record, about Democrats' record. It was just on and on. Biden was imperfect. There were at least a few false, misleading, or lacking in context claims from him. But for a fact checker, you're kind of sitting there with Biden. Occasionally, you're like, oh, that's wrong. With Trump, you're like that I Love Lucy episode in the Chocolate Factory. You know, you don't know which one to pick up because there's just so much. And so, again, with this president, we just see a constant barrage incessantly of false or misleading stuff.
You know, Daniel, the president's handling of the pandemic certainly was a major topic. Certainly during the first part of this debate, the president claimed that at one point that 2.2 million Americans were initially expected to die from the coronavirus. Listen to this.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China.
All right, Daniel, so that 2.2 million figure, accurate?
So, Wolf, it's a real figure, but Trump falsely describes it, and he's continued to do this at his rallies.
Yeah,
now,
he does this a lot.
It was a report from British academics, and it said that in the U.S., if no U.S. government did anything to mitigate the virus, to fight the virus, and no citizen took social distancing action, then we could see 2 million plus deaths. But this was not an expectation. It was not a realistic estimate. This was a figure put out there to say, this is how bad it gets if you just let this virus run its course, which, of course, the government was not about to do, Wolf.
Let's listen to a claim made by the president, Daniel, about the state of the coronavirus pandemic right now. Listen to this.
It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
All right, President keeps insisting the virus
it's not
is
going away, people.
It clearly is not going away. The numbers are awful.
It's not going away. Wolf, I did an analysis. I found the president had said between February and October 10th, Trump had said 38 times that it was going away. It was wrong 8 months ago, and it's wrong today. Look, as you said, the numbers are terrible. We're now back above 60,000 confirmed new cases per day. The president doesn't like to use this metric.
Figure this out, guys,
cases,
right
he dismisses
now.
it. Well, hospitalizations are also rising. We're setting records in many states, and sadly, deaths are now rising again, as they usually do with a lag after cases start rising. So we're not rounding any turn. It's not going away. Things are getting worse in the United States.
Yeah, 1,100 Americans died just yesterday in one day. Daniel, we're going to be getting back to you. I know you're doing a lot more fact-checking. Jake, over to you.
Twitch.
Thanks, Wolf. And I think one of the things that we need to talk about is, in addition to coronavirus, the manner in which President Trump talks about this, because this is obviously something that is affecting all of us, even if we haven't lost somebody to COVID. And Vice President Biden tried to address people who have specifically lost people, and there are more than 222,000 Americans who have died from this. And that is just the concept of empathy, because that is what the Biden people keep hitting, what Joe Biden keeps hitting, and it is
free.
An area that
Connect
Donald
with
Trump
Trich, baby. Let's
not
go.
able to communicate effectively at all, if he even possesses it, which I'm not sure.
I don't give a shit.
We saw it time and time again during this debate, talking about, I mean, very cold-heartedly about the more than 500 kids who were separated from their parents as a policy by the Trump Department of Justice. Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, enacted it, and how they haven't been able to find their parents. And then you also just heard things about like people being deported, undocumented immigrants being deported and not coming back for their court date. And then President Trump said, except for some with the lowest IQs. And just the inability to talk about what we're all going through, even if it's just your kids are struggling because they're learning on their computers.
Right. The key moment that really encapsulated the president not understanding how to empathize on the coronavirus was that he repeated, as he often does, we're learning to live with it. And then Joe Biden came back and said, actually, we're dying with it. And I think that really was the moment on the virus that encapsulated how this president only wants to focus on reopening, doesn't want to acknowledge the sacrifices that the American people have made, that I know many of the president's advisors and supporters would like him to do, because the vice president does it. When he talks about coronavirus, he says, you know, I want to thank the American people for doing all that you've done all of these months.
You're talking about Vice President Pence.
Vice President Pence. Yeah. President Trump almost never does it, but I want to add one more to your list. He was asked directly, do you understand why black families have the talk? The president literally never answered the question and never attempted to answer the question. That could have been a moment for him to say something, to do something.
I don't want to listen to CNN anymore. All right, well. Yeah, it's true. All right, peoples. That was a fun debate. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.